Oh, okay. Hello. So this is what I'm going to be doing New Year's Eve. Yay. So right, I'm your ref, Just Sparkle, and I have created a game where I'm going to track every single bad thing across all 9 seasons that Barney and Ted have done. So it's not going to include, so there's not going to be anything about Robin or Lily or Marshall, really. It's not a recap video. This is just me tracking Ted and Barney's faults. In the spirit of things, I got definitely a beer, because they like to drink beer on the show. Alright, so the game is, yes, I also have a football field. So the game is, there's points for different offenses. So the highest tier of points is the NFL National Football League tier. So the first one is, all of these are worth 50 points. Sexism, Transphobia, Fatphobia, SA, SH, and the rule here is, the rule for this game and in life is that sexual assault is having to do with if somebody is touched physically, and sexual harassment is a comment that is offensive or demeaning in a sexual manner. Racism, and I also decided to add extra 10 points if the racism is toward a developing country, and I'm going to rank this by HDI, Human Development Index, and so medium to low is classified as a 0.6 or below. So any country that they make a racist comment about that has a 0.6 or lower Human Development Index score, it's an extra 10 points. Homophobia, actual crimes, theft, etc., using slurs. Gooning, mansplaining, Seggulising minors, degrading women in Seggs Work. I don't know if it's too early in the video, but Seggs, you know. So the next level is collegiate level offenses. Every single one of these is 30 points. So lying to a woman to gain affection, physical or emotional, is 30 points. Fetishizing lesbians is 30 points. Racist accent, sexist micro-aggression, calling women sluts or bitches, calling women crazy, calling women ugly, objectifying women. And the amateur league offenses are all worth 15 points. Terrible joke, Misunderstanding Canada, weird American propaganda, calling Britney Spears ugly, spending way more money than it's realistic, wearing an ugly outfit and thinking it looks good, encouraging binge drinking, or rude comment about current female celeb. And finally, the most highest rank offense for 100 evil points is talking to Lin-Manuel Miranda. And we also have our penalties. So this is where my board, it's supposed to be a football field. I ran out of green marker. This board, so we have Barney and Ted, and I thought it would be funny to have Neil Patrick Harris doing this gambling ad. So they both start at the 50-yard line, and there's different penalties they can get. I guess it'd be I don't really know how football works, but I guess it would be the opposite. Like, if you get a penalty, you move. Wait, No, that's what it is.
Israel.
You move back on the field, so I guess they'll do a touchdown, and then if they get to the touchdown, it's major touchdown. Okay. So here are the penalties. This is 5-yard penalty, false start, making an abrupt movement prior to the snap of the ball, jumping into a relationship too quickly, love bombing. Pass interference, a 10-yard penalty, preventing someone from catching the ball, interfering with a woman's career/dreams. Unsportsmanlike conduct is a 15-yard penalty, and that is for degrading women. Illegal formation is a 5-yard penalty, lying about intentions of being a nice guy. Delay of game is a 5-yard penalty, and that is for dragging out a relationship without commitment. So, we understand how the game works. Okay. Ready? Break. Go team. I don't know anything about football. Go team. All right, so just to reiterate, this is not a recap. So hopefully you'd seen the show before. Because I'm going to try to like give context, but I'm not doing because now like this script is already 160 pages. If I did a recap, it would be like 10 hours long, who knows. So we're mainly just focusing on Ted and Barney here. All right. Episode 1 is called Pilot. The pilot is legitimately good, so I don't think there'll be many offenses, but it's downhill from here. And Marshall, it's excluded, but he's the only good male character, so. So we start off, we meet our protagonist, Theodore Evelyn Mosby. Right. So we have Ted Evelyn Mosby. He's just turning 27 in 2005. He's old. And the older Ted, even older, is played by like Bob Saget. I don't know. I think he's from Full House or something. And so it's POV of the older dad. And there's the 2 kids in the future in 2030. And one of them is played by, I think, the girl who has a crush on Charlie that's always sunny in Philadelphia. I don't know. I think it's her. And then the other son is played by David Henry from Wizards of Waverly Place. All right, so we start off. Barney says Lebanese girls are the new half Asians. And that's plus 15 for a terrible joke. And plus 50 points for racism. It is racism, but I checked. Lebanon is not below 8.6 on the Human Development Index scale, even though blackouts and corruption are common in Lebanon. Lebanon is also in the Middle East, so half Asian makes no sense, but okay. And right, so the pilot is, the show loves to reference the pilot. So the pilot introduces Lily, played by Allison Hannigan, as a teacher. And she has like handprints on her chest because funny. And she said a 5-year-old went to second base with me, but this video isn't about Lily. And then so we have Robin, and she's in her iconic green turtleneck. And the first thing Barney says about her is, "See that girl? Oh yeah, you know, she just likes it dirty." So that is a 15-yard penalty to Barney for unsportsmanlike conduct. So that gives him a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct, and also a 50 points, evil points, for sexual harassment against Robin. Okay. So Ted asks Robin out. He takes her to this restaurant where there is the blue horn, which he aptly names Smurf penis. I can't remember. They were talking about, I don't know. Ted makes a joke about a gorilla with a gorilla with an upright base. It was bad on purpose, but it's bad still. So 15 points to Ted. So the date goes really poorly because he tells Robin, "I love you," way too early. She tells him to leave, and then he's talking with his friends at the bar about it, because that's the thing about this show. They really love to do, like, different timelines, and I thought it was so funny on the podcast. There's a podcast called How I Made Your Mother, and Craig, I think it's Craig Thomas, was saying he loves Quentin Tarantino, and that's why they like to do the timelines thing so much. And I'm like, I mean, that's pretty serious, comparing yourself to Tarantino. But so there's a lot of different timelines, so that sometimes makes things confusing. But it flashes forward to Ted, and he's talking to Lily and Marshall and Barney, and Barney says, "You just kiss her. Terrible advice. 50 points for sexual harassment." And then, because they're debating if there's a look or not. They're like, "Is there a look?" And there is a look. So, and he kisses Marshall without asking. That's 50 points for sexual assault. And Robin says she likes the blue French horn at this restaurant, so Ted steals the horn, which is a 50 points for a misdemeanor. And here's a 5-yard penalty for Ted for a false start, for saying "I love you" to Robin when he literally just met her that day. So, okay. Okay, and so for some reason, this guy is like really important. They get into a cab because Barney and Lily and Marshall or whatever, they're like, "Oh, you should have kissed her. You gotta kiss her." And he's like, "Okay, I'll go back." And so he takes this cab all the way to Brooklyn from Manhattan at like 9 p.m. And there's this reoccurring character. His name's Ranji, and the only thing that's funny about him is that he has an accent, like a Bangladeshi accent, and that's the joke. That's the whole joke. Like, I mean, granted, the actor has a lot of charisma, but basically the whole joke is that he has an accent. And so they get into the cab, and then Barney asks if the women are hot in Bangladesh, and he shows him a picture of his wife, and Barney goes, "A simple no would have sufficed." So rude. So plus 50 to Barney for racism, plus 30 for calling women ugly, plus 10 more racism because Bangladesh is a 0.4 on the HTI scale, with a life expectancy of 50 years old. And to top it all off, at the end of the episode, Barney says there's no such thing as the signal. So plus 50 for sexual harassment to Barney. All right. Episode 2, Purple Giraffe. Okay, so this one's really good. It's like, my tone is, I need to work on my tone. I'm being sarcastic. So it's kind of like Ted does a Jay Gatsby thing where he throws multiple parties throughout the entire weekend just because he wants Robin to come. And yeah, so that was love bombing. So Ted gets another 5-yard penalty for love bombing Robin and throwing multiple parties. And so he's at the 40. I think I'm gonna reset every season to see like who does the most touchdowns. All right. Okay, so someone spots that Robin is on 75th and Columbus, so Ted rushes down to 75th and Columbus to stalk Robin. So 50 evil points for crime stalking. And in his fantasy of Robin coming to the party, he calls her a foxy young thing, which is supposed to be a joke, but it's also just weird. So 30 evil points for sexist microaggression to Ted. Yeah, and the whole thing is really, the message of this episode is like, if a woman says no, just keep going. So she's a reporter and she's doing a report on this toy giraffe, or this kid got stuck in a vending machine because he was trying to get this toy giraffe. So it shows Ted and the kid like interspersed at the same time, where the kid is getting the giraffe. So it's literally comparing women to actual toys or physical objects that you can win, you know, with money or something like that. Just saying women are prizes to be won. So yeah, really starting off on a great note, guys. All right. Episode 3, The Sweet Taste of Liberty. And this is in my hometown, okay? So I know a lot about Philly. Yeah, so the episode starts with Barney. He locks Ted in a cab with the help of the cab driver, so he gets 50 evil points for kidnapping. He makes a joke about how cute girls are not from Buffalo, New York, which is likely true, but still rude. So plus 30 to Barney for calling women ugly. They literally they get on a plane and buy a ticket to Philly from New York City just to stalk women, because there's these women on the plane that they think are somewhat attractive, so they follow them across states. So I gave Barney 15 points for spending way more money than is realistic, because why would you even? I mean, why? And I gave them 30 good points, Barney and Ted, for being excited to go to Philly, which is not that good of a city. It's still better than Pittsburgh, but nothing to do. And I said one of the things that bothered me is they, throughout the entire show, I think, they never refer to women as women. They call them girls. And right now it's fine, because I think they're like 27, 26. So that's okay, but it feels kind of condescending. They're still calling women girls by the time the show ends, and they're in their like 30s. And Marshall says goon. 1 million good points to Marshall. And Barney brings suspicious bags to the airport 3 years after 9/11 in New York City. If he wasn't rich or white, oh boy. 50 points for crime. And Barney leaves a bunch of bags at the airport. 15 for littering. And 50 for Barney and Ted for loitering at the airport without a ticket. Okay, yeah, so they get stopped by the security. Marshall decides to meet them in Philly, so he starts driving. And when he's even though it's a green screen, an obvious green screen, he practices safe driving because he looks behind his shoulder multiple times. So Marshall gets 1 million good points. So they find out mid-flight that the women have boyfriends that they stalked to Philadelphia. And so they're like, all right, let's just take a flight back and we can miss last call. And I'm like, last call is usually 4 or 5 a.m., right? Usually 4, usually 3 or 4. And they're really just gonna take a flight. Okay. And I said plus 15 evil points to both for encouraging binge drinking, because going to a bar after 2 domestic flights late at night sounds like alcohol dependency. Alright, episode 4, Return of the Shirt. Alright, so we start with a crime. Barney gets 50 points for crime. He attempts to bribe Robin into saying nipple live on her news channel. And according to New York penal law 180.0, you say 180.3 or 180.03, you could be charged with commercial bribing in the first degree if you confer or offer or confer any benefit on an employee without the consent of the employee's employer, in order to influence the employee's work-related conduct. So Barney is interfering with Robin's work-related conduct, and even though she's not a public servant, so the offense would be much lower, it's still classified as a Class D felony. And Barney gets a 10-yard penalty for pass interference for interfering with Robin's career because he could get her fired just for a dumb bet. So he's at the... Wait, he was at 35? No, okay, now he's at 25. Okay. And Marshall says goon again. Well, Goonies. So he gets 1 million good points for that. And Ted doesn't want to date this woman named Steph because she made porn films. The irony is not lost on me because men consume porn, but the women who make porn are somehow gross. Aw, 50 points to Ted. And a 15-yard penalty to Ted for unsportsmanlike conduct. He's at 30, 40, or wait. 40 minus 15 is 25. Right. Oh, so him and Barney are tied right now. Okay. So Barney says, "Is it cold in here? I can kind of see Robin's nickels," and he means nipples. So plus 50 points to Barney for sexual harassment. Right, so we meet Ted's first girlfriend. Her name's Natalie. She likes sock puppets, this monkey sock puppets. And I don't really have a category for this, but Ted dumps her by leaving a message on her answering machine on her birthday, so that's 50 evil points. And they're talking, and Barney says his favorite kind of Seggs is, "My sister just got married and I'm afraid of turning 30 Seggs." And I said, "Women be afraid of aging and be needy." Waka waka. So that's 50 evil points to Barney. Yeah, so Ted knows that Natalie loves sock monkeys. So he buys a sock monkey to manipulate Natalie into getting back with him because he wants her affection. So he gets 30 points lying to women to gain affection, emotional or physical. And he gets a 5-yard penalty. Sorry, it's from Walmart. It's not very good. And he gets a 5-yard penalty for a false start with Natalie. Love bombing. Ted mentions he subscribed to Esquire plus 10 evil points. He has to break with... I said he has to break up with her because they don't want to pay the actress to work multiple episodes. Oh, right. So he love bombs Natalie with a sock monkey. He says they should get back together. And then he was like, "I don't know, she's just not the one." So he decides to break up with her like 10 minutes later. And Marshall mentions Stairway to Heaven because he's the best character. And Barney tells somebody they look fat in those jeans, so 50 points for Fatphobia. And I think Barney says to Lily, "Seriously, honey, men are working here." Then Barney becomes Don Draper and treats Lily like it's 1960, plus 30 for sexist microaggressions. And then I just said, how does Ted know she's not the one? He talked to her for like 5 minutes total in the episode. I don't know. Right, so this is a crime. So Barney solicits Robin to grab her own in a sexual manner on live television, which is an act of public lewdness. According to New York Penal Law 245, classified as a misdemeanor, could also be interpreted as New York Penal Law 230.4, patronizing a prostitute in the 3rd degree, because Barney is giving Robin money to perform sexual acts in public. Robin could potentially face up to 3 months in jail for performing sexual acts on live television, which is a Class B misdemeanor. and a possible termination from her job for violating the FCCC broadcast decency rules. And for the second time, Ted breaks up with Natalie on her birthday again. I didn't have a category for that, but he's getting 30 more evil points. Yeah, and when she asks why he's breaking up with her, not only does he say she's just not the one, he also mansplains to her and says ineffable means that it can't be explained. So 50 points for mansplaining. And Natalie practices Krav Maga to beat Ted up, which is developed by the Israeli army. So that's 100 evil points to the show writers for Zionism. I said Ted gets beat up, so that's good at least. And at the end of the episode, David Henry, I think the kids' names were Penny and Luke. Wow, I can't believe I remember that. Yeah, the kids' names are Penny and Luke. And so Luke, played by David Henry, says, "You got beat up by a girl." So that's plus 30 to David Henry for Sexist Micro-aggression. Alright, episode 5. Okay, awesome. Literally less than a minute in, Barney says to Robin he wants to show you his own VIP. And the VIP refers to penis. And at this point, they're platonic, so she's just his friend. This is not how you should talk to female friends. Plus 50 to Barney for sexual harassment. And the sets in season 1 are really bad. It was reminiscent of Sesame Street. And Barney calls Robin's friend ugly 3 times, plus 30 times 3 evil points. And Barney says one of the 20 similarities of women and fish is that they are both attracted to shiny objects, plus 30 for sexist microaggression. I mean, I am attracted to shiny objects, but I have severe ADHD and brain rot, so it doesn't apply to all women. And Barney wears an ugly silver shirt and thinks it looks good, plus 15 evil points. Yeah. And so I think Barney is referring to Marshall. He says, "Who knew being a committed heterosexual relationship could make a guy so gay?" And Neil Patrick Harris, we're going to be hearing a lot about this guy. He is gay in real life, but totally fine with making homophobic jokes about gay men, more feminine than him, because he's one of the good ones. Plus 50 evil points for homophobia, plus 15 points for a bad joke. I said, because why is being gay a bad thing, 1? And 2, why is tasting cheese and drinking wine gay? Barney never stepped foot in France. Oh yeah, so they're in the club. They go to the club, and it's so bad. The music is like, but it's playing over. It's like, it's clearly added in post, and it's so bad. And I got excited because I thought there was this coat check girl. I thought she was played by Anna Faris, but no, it's that annoying lady from Glee. And so Marshall has a toothache, and he's at the club, and he eats something for his toothache, and he goes in the bathroom, and he comes out, and he's super happy. And I said, Marshall does speed, but it's okay because he has ADHD, so he needs it. That's a joke, by the way. That's a joke. Don't actually. It's like because use stimulants. Like, you need stimulants when you have ADHD. And Barney grinds with this girl all night, and then he finds out that she's his cousin. So plus 30 evil points for incest. And again with the wine tasting, Ted says fruity little wine tasting, plus 50 points for homophobia. Alright, episode 6, the slutty pumpkin. Alright, 30 seconds in, Barney says, one night a year, women let out their inner hoe bag, plus 30 evil points. And Marshall has a quarter zip on this episode, looking fresh, very trendy. And Ted steals a kid's Halloween candy, cartoonishly evil, plus 15 points. And Barney says she could be engaged or married or, God forbid, fat. So plus 50 points to Barney for Fatphobia. And on Halloween, Marshall wears eyeliner and dresses as a pirate, so 50 hot points for him. And Barney dresses as Robert De Niro in that plane, I don't know, the one with the mohawk they did in Neighbors, whatever. Plus 15 evil points. And Ted does acapella, plus 50 evil points. Alright, so episode 7 is called Matchmaker. There's a mutant cockroach rat called the cockroach, and Ted goes to a matchmaker, and the show loves to reference itself like 2 seasons in, so you don't even need to remember the cockroach because they'll talk about it a lot. And Barney says to Ted, "Wow, Ted, sounds like you're her perfect woman." Plus 30 to Barney for sexist microaggression. And Marshall mentions Loch Ness Monster, plus 100 hot ADHD points. And Marshall mentions Bigfoot, plus 100 hot ADHD hyperfixation points. And Marshall reads about Roswell, New Mexico, plus 100 hot ADHD points. I said this episode's kind of cute. No evil points. Or not that many. Alright, episode 8, The Duel. And so Barney sets up a online dating profile. And he says, "I'm looking for someone to love or cuddle," or so it says in my profile. Evil laugh. Plus 30 evil points for lying to a woman to gain affection. Lily moves in with Ted and Marshall, and it causes wacky antics. Ted buys an English phone booth to make a passive-aggressive statement. And I looked it up. A life-size English phone booth retails at between $1,000 and $2,000. So plus 15 to Ted for spending way more than is realistic. Episode 9, Belly Full of Turkey. So the guy who voices Patrick Star in SpongeBob plays Marshall's dad, Bill Fagerbakke. Yeah, so Barney made a joke that made me exhale out my nose. So we can subtract 5 evil points from him. And the joke was 2 strippers, one dressed as a pilgrim and one as an Indian, and they eat Thanksgiving dinner, and everyone at the table goes, "Ew," and then he goes, "Sorry, Native American." I exhaled out my nose. That was kind of funny. And plus 50 to Barney for public urination. Okay, episode 10, The Pineapple Incident. So the older Ted from Family Guy, from Full House, is telling his kids about a time he blacked out, so it's plus 15 for encouraging binge drinking. I think he says little Mewtwo in Malawi can get his malaria pills, so plus 50 for racism. And Barney calls this woman half boob, plus 50 to Barney for SH. And another 50 for SH, he calls her half boob again, which is a really gross way to refer to a woman he's supposedly attracted to. And also is just reminiscent of the uniboob, which is not attractive, so I don't know why the writers thought that was good. And Barney gets 50 more evil points for crime. He sets Ted's jacket on fire. But Ted gets negative 10 evil points because he was vomit-free since 93. Alright, episode 11, The Limo. And I said minus 10 evil points for Barney for making a mixtape that's all rise and starts with "You Give Love a Bad Name" by Bon Jovi. And as someone with ADHD, I approve of that playlist. And Ted's this lady who has like a Soviet accent or Russian accent, whatever. And he refers to it as the former Republic of Drunk Off Her Assistan. I said hard to rate with the Human Development Index score because he's just referring to general former Soviet country, could be anything. But still rude, so plus 50 for racism to Barney. Barney grabs Lily's feet, plus 15 evil points. Alright, episode 12, the wedding. Barney says, don't bring a girl to a wedding. It's like bringing a deer carcass to a hunting trip. It's 1 minute in, and to be fair, Ted calls him out, but it's still weird and sexist. Plus 50 evil points to Barney for racism. Or for sexism, sorry. And then Barney says, Ted, you're gonna have to find yourself another gender. I'm revoking your dude membership. Barney says this to Ted for being excited about asking Robin out on a date, so I guess showing any signs of emotion is just girly, I don't know. See, this is what people mean when they say the patriarchy hurts men too. And plus 50 for transphobia to Barney for saying Ted needs a new gender. Also, NPH is short for Neil Patrick Harris. Being openly gay and saying these lines just makes me so mad. I hope the check was worth it. Oh, and then so there's Stuart and Claudia, and their reference, they like come back a lot. It's basically just like the, oh, I hate my wife is crazy joke for like 9 seasons. So basically they're going to Stuart and Claudia's wedding. And Claudia be acting cray-cray. And so I just imagine Craig and Carter writing this and be like, women be bridezillas, women be shopping. And Barney says they, parentheses women, all drink vodka cranberries when referring to Claudia, but I'll allow it because all I do drink is vodka cranberries. And the wedding has like 12 people in it. Oh, and Ted meets Victoria, which is his second girlfriend of the show, and she likes to bake cakes. Alright, episode 13, drum roll please. He said, imagine getting married in 2006. Old flops. Okay, massage. Barney gets massaged by feet, plus 30 Dan Schneider points. Annoying Michael Bublé song, plus 50 evil points to the sound directors. Alright, episode 14, zip, zip, zip. So Barney says the only reason to wait a month for sex is if a girl is 17 years and 11 months old. Ew, that was straight up a Dennis Reynolds line, plus 50 for Seggulising Minors. Barney gets undressed without asking Robin's permission, plus 50 for SH. Episode 15, game night. So basically, Barney used to be this super woke hippie who respected women and worked at a coffee shop, but he became destroyed because one girlfriend broke up with him. I said I miss Soy Boy Barney, but commentary bros who play Halo and say the R slur would call him a cuck, and iDubbbz Anissa adjacent. Yeah, so basically Barney becomes broken up with one time and becomes a complete menace to society. But Ted reveals he has not been Vomit 3 since 93, so that's 30 evil points to him. Shannon is his hippie girlfriend, so Barney illegally records having sex with his hippie girlfriend Shannon and plays it for his friends, which is a crime. According to the unlawful surveillance in New York penal law 250.45 and 250.50, which are Class E and Class D felonies, which can be punishable of 4 to 7 years in prison, and may have to register as a sex offender under New York's Offenders Registration Act, SORA. Alright. Episode 16, Cupcake. Victoria gets a culinary job in Germany, which Europe is kind of depressing, but I'm sure Germany is much better than France, so I'll allow it. And Marshall says everything is sketchy and seems illegal. It's like shopping in Barney's mind. Well, you don't even have to say it seems illegal, because Barney literally committed 2 felonies in the last episode. Oh, and then Barney does a terrible Irish accent. That's 50 evil points. And I have a personal beef with Neil Patrick Harris, because how are you gonna play one of the most horrible misogynistic characters on television and also give us Irish folk a horrible name? And he says he pretended he was a humble sheep shearer in Calharney. Humble sheep shearer in Calharney. We're trying to do like, I don't remember, Michelle, like, not welcome to Derry Girls. He was a humble sheep shearer in Calharney. And he said he was doing long distance, and that's why he did the Irish accent. And I said I think the joke would have been way funnier if he said long distance, mentioning she's on 34th Street and saying it's so long distance with the traffic, which is kind of a Seinfeld joke, but I think it's better than doing a horrible Irish accent. And Lily, one important thing about Lily is she wants to be a painter, so she did a semester abroad in France, and Ted bullied this student who he thought was a boy. It turned out to be a girl with a mustache. Marshall bullies her. And I said it's unrealistic because French people don't speak English. Alright, episode 17, Life Among the Gorillas. So I said Marshall is based and really loves the environment, but also these supposedly progressive lobbying organizations do jack all for the environment, or anything in general, really. I thought Slipping Jimmy was in this episode. It's not. He's not in it yet. So Marshall's not getting along with his friends at work because they're all really weird and misogynistic, so Barney trains Marshall how to be a misogynist. So this show is too scared to commit, so Barney, it's like, ew, we know Barney's gross and sexist, but literally like nothing bad happens to him ever. And so they do karaoke, and I said, thank God, every time Neil Patrick Harris doesn't sing, a fairy gets his wings. But then he did sing, unfortunately. Episode 18, Nothing Good Happens After 2 a.m. Alright, everything good happens after 2 a.m. to me, because I have ADHD. And Kobe Smulders, who plays Robin Scherbatsky, I think she should have been in more projects after How I Met Your Mother. She has a way of making Robin feel like a real person and has natural chemistry with her castmates. And the whole theme of this episode is if Ted's gonna cheat on Victoria. And he did cheat on Victoria. So he gets a 5-yard... So he gets a 5-yard penalty for delay of game, delaying the breakup with Victoria because he knows he wants to sleep with Robin. Put him in 15. Alright, episode 9, Mary the Paralegal. And the whole episode is Barney tricks Ted into thinking this woman is a prostitute and she's actually a paralegal. And Ted thinks prostitutes are gross. Plus 50 evil points for degrading women in sex work. He said it's illegal. Did I mention gross? Plus 50. evil points to Ted for degrading women in sex work. And then Ted also says if we can get a blessing from her pimp, plus 50 evil points for degrading women in sex work. 15-yard penalty to Ted. Wait. And that's a 15-yard penalty to Ted for unsportsmanlike conduct. Oh, so now he's negative. Now, oh, he already made a touchdown. Okay. So, even before the season 1 ends, Ted makes a touchdown. Major touchdown? Okay. I said, I can sleep with as many random women as I want, but I'm searching for the one. But if a woman sleeps with a lot of men, it's gross. Ted Mosby, probably. Oh, yeah, this is bad. So Barney says, Ted, you're my cabron. It's like brother in Spanish. And he was like, do you think I would stick you with some toothless T slur from the Port Authority? Plus 50 evil points to Barney for transphobia. And plus another 50 for using slurs. And the way he said it was just really cruel. Yeah, so the twist of the episode is that Barney told Ted this woman from his building is a paralegal and not a sex worker. And I guess that's evil. I don't know, it's kind of weird and mean to sex workers, and Ted is weirdly elitist. Ted calls women in sex work whores, plus 50 evil points for degrading women in sex work. Episode 20, best prom ever. So Barney calls Robin a lesbian for playing field hockey. Thought the stereotype was softball or lacrosse, but okay. Plus 50 points to Barney for homophobia. Barney tells Lily she has statutory written all over her body, and she wafts her hair, meaning she took it as a compliment. And Lily is a kindergarten teacher, so plus 50 for sexualizing minors. Barney says that Ashley, Lindsay, and Paris all dress like strippers. Like, everyone will know Paris Hilton's name for defining Y2K fashion. People already forgot about Neil Patrick Harris, except annoying theater kids. And plus 15 for a rude comment about current female celeb. 15 times 3 because he mentioned 3 different female celebrities. Scooter is played by Neil Patrick Harris's real-life husband. So keep that in mind, that NPH is actively out here married to a gay man while playing his character that always says homophobic slurs. I tried to make a regression. I was trying to get stata, but it costs money unless you're in university, so I tried to make my own multivariate regression. Evil score equals A times misogyny plus B times gaslighting plus C times emotional manipulation. I'm sad because I wanted to make a regression, but I don't want to pay for stata. Alright, episode 21, Milk. So Ted turns 28, which is so old. Ew. So Barney calls the paramedics to say this random woman in New York City is wearing a tank top when I assume it's winter, so since we just had a Thanksgiving episode. 15 points to Barney for a terrible joke. Alright. It's definitely still New Year's Eve. Not the next day. Happy New Year's 2016, guys. Alright. Oh yeah, okay, so so Barney nuts in he has the coworker, his rival coworker, and he nuts in his sandwich. So I looked that up because I figured it was gonna be a crime. which according to New York Penal Law 145.45, it is tampering with a consumer product in the first degree, which Barney took photos of him tampering with this rival Firm Guy's sandwich and sent it to him. Tampering with a consumer product in the first degree is a Class E felony, which can be sentenced to 5 years in prison or 5 years of probation. We learn that Barney is forced to do community service in the Thanksgiving episode, so at least the writers are somewhat aware of his crimes. 50 points to Barney for crimes. And that's, if you hear a bell, that's my cat Minu. She might want to help out a little bit. Oh, right. And we get a guest star in this episode. Bob from Bob's Bugs Be Gone is... I think he takes over as the matchmaker because the last episode the matchmaker was gone, or she left, so... And Ted mentions that he wants his dream girl to have a favorite food of lasagna, so it turns out that his dream girl is Garfield. Yeah, so the rival... So the other rival of Barney, his name is Butterfield, and Barney gives Marshall the cup that Butterfield lawyer guy splooged in, which is another instance of tampering with consumer products, and 50 crime points to Barney. Most likely, Barney could not be held accountable because his tampering with the food product does not lead to physical harm. However, I would argue that it's possible. Hey! No. I know you're cute, but you can't mess with it. Most likely, Barney could not be held accountable because his tampering with the food product does not lead to physical harm. However, I would argue that it is possible that it could lead to fear or harm, as Mr. Butterfield unknowingly consuming semen could lead to orally sexually transmitted diseases such as HIV, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, and hepatitis B. Also, boo to the writers, because why do the characters that show up episode to episode have the fakest sounding names ever? And Ted gets stranded on the side of the road. Yay. Threatens to kill Lily. Yeah, Ted does a black scent. He says, can't a brother go apple picking without the third degree? Damn. Writers in Hollywood want to be black culture, so they appropriate it. Plus 30 to Ted for a racist accent. And Ted mentions that he's 28. So old, disgusting, ew, old. I'm 26, so I'm really young and cool and hip and not unk. Right, guys? Right, Gen Alpha? Right? And finally, Barney lets mice loose in the office, but I'm gonna let it slide because those mice are likely native to the New York metropolitan area, but if they were invasive species, that would have been a penalty. Episode 22, come on. So Barney mentions that wearing whipped cream undies usually does not work, except this one time in 1999. Imagine being that old. I was born in 1999. Old flops. Anyway. Plus 50 points for sexual harassment. And also the writers likely stole that joke from Not Another Teen Movie. Marshall, yet again, wears another quarter zip. Classic gentleman move. Ted love bombs Robin with a whole blue orchestra. Looks like he just blew himself.
I'm afraid I just blew myself. There's got to be a better way to say that.
Okay, that's a 5-yard penalty for false start to Ted for love bombing Robin with the whole orchestra. Ted has already hit a touchdown, so he can't have any more penalties, but I guess he would be negative off the field. He'd be in the stands by now. Alright, so that's season 1. So let's reset the board. Alright, season 2. Let's go, team! Okay. So episode 1, where were we? So the only problem with this episode is that so Barney goes out and uses Robin as a wingman because she's the only one available. And he thinks that she's so much cooler than other women because she likes guns instead of Love Actually and period stuff. So that's a plus 30 for microaggression to Barney. Alright, episode 2, the Scorpion and the Toad. Episode 2, the Scorpion and the Toad. So we find out that rule number 5 in Barney's dumb playbook is make an attractive woman feel ugly and unattractive, and she'll be like putty in your hands. Plus 50 points to Barney for lying to women to gain affection. Also, this is just horrible flirting advice. Don't listen to men that tell you to neg women, because why would anyone want to be talked to that way? And Robin says, trust me, I'm a girl. And Ted says, yeah, but you're Canadian. So plus 15 to Ted for weird jabs against Canada. Barney calls all the college girls that reject him. Barney calls these college girls who reject him in their lesbian college phase in this weird condescending tone. Plus 50 evil points for homophobia. Alright, episode 3, brunch. But no evil points or penalties, so good job for this episode. Alright, episode 4, Ted Mosby, architect. So Barney pretends to be a ghost that only materializes once a year. Sorry, my cat's autistic like me. She has this super long routine for wiping her paws when she's done the litter box. So Barney pretends to be a ghost that only materializes once a year and tells the women that he slept with that he will see her again in 10 years, provided she keeps her figure. So plus 50 points for Fatphobia to Barney. Oh wait, I'm sorry. So episode 3, the brunch episode, I thought it was a different episode. It's actually the episode where they go to brunch with Ted's parents and they find out they're divorced. And that's pretty boring, but nothing evil happens, so good job. So this, episode 5, World's Greatest Couple. So this is the homophobic episode where Marshall goes to Broadway shows with that lawyer friend, Brad. And we find out that Barney calls his apartment the Fortress of Barnitude, so that's plus 15 points for a stupid joke. Barney says Lily is an illegal immigrant in the Fortress of Barnitude, and she can qualify for a sex visa, but that only lasts 12 hours, or 14 if there are multiple entries. So he's basically soliciting his friend Marshall's ex-fiance for anal sex, so that's amazing. Plus 50 evil points for SH. And I just noted that it really started to at this point I was noticing it a little bit, and then it really started to bother me more as it went on, but all the women in this show wear super low cut tank tops, and it's supposed to be set in New York City when it's only hot 3 months a year, so, and it gets way more noticeable in the later seasons too. Oh, episode 6, this one's called Aldrin Justice. So Lily gets hired as Ted's new assistant at his architecture firm because the last assistant, I think, yeah, she was assistant. The last assistant quit because she's a lovely plus-sized woman, and she pulls out a chicken, and Ted goes, oh, awesome, you brought lunch for everyone? How hard is it to say nothing, Ted? Like, just mind your fucking business, dude. Plus 50 points for Fatphobia. And this episode's only good because Bryan Cranston plays Mr. Druthers, in Ted's architecture firm, and his whole thing, this is like a running joke for the entire season, is that he wants to design a building that looks like a penis, so it's really hot, it's really funny. And I said this episode is actually kind of good for Barney because his whole thing in this episode is trying to satisfy a cougar because Marshall has this really strict professor in law school, which he goes to Columbia, by the way. It's so weird how shows will just name drop these really, really hard universities to get into. What do you think? Yeah? You think Barney's evil? What do you think? So anyway, the whole Barney plot is that he's trying to satisfy this professor who's a cougar, in his own words. And I said that's actually not so bad because he actually wants to satisfy women, so good for him. Alright, episode 7 is called Swarly, and this is the one that millennials love to quote. So they're in a coffee shop and they try to hang out there and they're like, no, it just doesn't hit the same. I didn't say it like that. They're just like, no, this doesn't feel right. And it's just like a really funny referential joke to the fact that the friends from the show Friends always hung out in a coffee shop. And Ted, and so anyway, so the coffee, the lady at the barista writes, instead of Barney, she writes Swarly, so they call him Swarly for the rest of the episode. And Ted admits to Robin that his look to seduce women is him looking down and like scrunching his shoulders and being like, and I was like, why is his look just that meme with Kevin James? He's like, but no points, so good. Alright, episode 8, Atlantic City. I think season 2 is going to be kind of short because this is the only season where the writing is halfway decent, so all we find out of note in this episode is that Barney is familiar with the Chinese mafia in Atlantic City. That's the type of people he hangs around. Episode 9 is Slap Bet. And in this episode, Robin doesn't ever want to go to malls, and they're like, why don't you want to go to malls? And Ted asks if she found out she was Canadian at a mall. So that's plus 15 evil points to Ted for weird comments about Canada. Oh. Yeah, this has another one of those really well-known scenes where Ted's like imagining he wants to know Ted wants to know what Robin is hiding because he's like, what if it's something really serious that she's hiding? And so it flash forwards in the Oscar award winning Quentin Tarantino-esque flash forward where he's about to marry Robin and she goes, I used to be a dude. And so that's plus 50 points to Ted for transphobia. And I also said, like, if you can't even matter, like, why, or if you can't even tell, like, why does it matter? Who cares? Alright, episode 10, Single Stamina. So, for some reason in this show, I hate this guy, but Barney has this really annoying brother named James, and he's supposed to be, like, really cool and suave. And the thing about him is that they never shut up about how he's gay and also black, and I'm like, what? Why does it matter? But, like, okay, so the episode starts, and Robin's like, how on God's green earth did it not come up that Barney has a gay black brother? And so another thing I noticed, too, is that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was really ahead of its time, because, it was constantly riffing on How I Met Your Mother as it aired, and I definitely think there's an episode called Mac and Dennis Move to the Suburbs, and there's a bet where they have to sleep in the bed with an old man if they can't last in the suburbs, and they were like, they find the old man, they're like, why didn't you mention he's an old black man? And I feel like this is definitely a reference to this episode. because they just never stop saying he's black and gay, and it's really weird. And I honestly think it just would have been better if they made Barney himself gay. If there wouldn't have been all these like sexist, he wouldn't have been objectifying women so much. Hookup culture is a lot more common with a lot of gay men. But it's just because Carter Bays and Craig Thomas, they wanted to hire all these model women and have them take their shirts off and objectify them and have them wear tank tops every episode. So they couldn't do that if Barney was a gay character. And they always reuse, oh my god, they reuse the same wedding set, like the same exact chairs for 9 whole seasons. Like even the same even the same chairs in the final episode. And I noticed too, the floor they used, I thought it was the same studio because it looks like the floor they used for the ballroom set in Disney Channel shows, especially Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. But I think what happens is it's not the same studio. They rent from the same companies, I think. So if they need like a ballroom set, they'll have this thing like to lay out that's tiles. And so James, it's revealed, oh, Barney really cares that James is not a playboy anymore because he's married now and he has a baby, and Barney tells the baby he wants to help him out and be a player, and it's his nephew in the style of Cenk and Hassan Piker, I assume. Episode 11, How Lily Stole Christmas. So Barney calls Lily a laugh slut for laughing too much, I guess, and laughing at everyone's jokes. So plus 50 evil points for calling women sluts. And another thing I noted is that, it's definitely so apparent that It's Always Sunny is like a one-sided beef with this show. It's so funny. Because this is where, I mean, it comes back in season 9, but this is where we see Barney is just like this awful person, and as soon as there's a baby involved, he's like, I have a family now, everything's different. And there's a season of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Dennis Reynolds, who's a literal stalker and predator and borderline serial killer, has a family, and he's like, all right, I'm out. He's like, I gotta take care of my family now. And another thing they do is they parody Love Actually, which is cringy, but I mean, they do the thing where they're like, say it's just carolers. But at the time, it's like, okay, it was like 2006. That's current, I guess. All right, episode 12, First Time in New York. The Empire State Building is a metaphor for losing your V card, and the gang talks about losing their virginity. No issues. That one. Alright, episode 13 is called Columns. Robin says Bryan Cranston, who plays Mr. Druthers, is really good looking, and she's correct. Marshall again says he loves Loch Ness and Nessie, so it makes him very hot. And Scotland forever. So Barn. No. Stay right there. Okay. So Barney says he's 31 at the peak of his physical beauty. Press D for doubt. Wait, is it X for doubt? I don't know. And if he were a woman, he would have passed it long ago. Plus 50 points for sexism. All right. And I just had like a bunch of women who just turned 31. A bunch of female celebrities who just turned 31, and all gorgeous and beautiful, and Barney's a creep. And the icon, Margaret Qualley, who plays Sue in The Substance, is 31, so Barney needs to freaking chill. Oh, Bryan Cranston wears Ted's clothes and looks hotter than Ted Mosby while being twice as old. And I guess it's important that Bryan Cranston, or Mr. Druthers, he is going through a divorce, so he's sleeping in the office. Ted tries to help him out, but then Ted fires him and he has a heart attack. I don't have a category for this, but firing someone while they're actively having a heart attack is pretty evil. Alright, episode 14 is called Monday Night Football. Episode 14 is called Monday Night Football. Ted becomes autistic. And when so he's this sensory, he doesn't want to spoil the 2006 Super Bowl, so he doesn't want to spoil the 2006 Super Bowl, so he has this device where he has headphones and then like sunglasses and then there's things on the side. And Ted keeps looking at the sports bar waitress's boobs with his autism sensory chamber device. Plus 50 evil points to Ted for gooning. Episode 15, Lucky Penny. So my cat typed P0 dash 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 dash. And there's this crazy sale at the wedding dress shop. Oh, Lily and Marshall back together. And Barney says, I can't go to the wedding shop. I've got this thing, a penis. And so plus 50 evil points to Barney for sexism. Alright, episode 16 is called Stuff. And the episode starts and Marshall is asking Barney Marshall is asking Barney who he'd rather sleep with, like a classic mermaid or a mermaid where it's fish head and then legs on the bottom. And all Barney says is, I don't know, is she fat? So plus 50 points to Barney for Fatphobia. Alright, episode 17 is called Arrivederci Fiero. Lily just drops the T-slur and says it with her whole entire chest, so congrats. I said Ted is only hot when he has curly hair and flashbacks and looks like Darren Criss from a Harry Potter musical. And Barney cannot drive, but he still makes a comment about how much he hates women drivers. He said, except for lady drivers, don't get me started on lady drivers. And he says this while not knowing how to drive himself. So plus 50 evil points for Sexist Micro-aggression to Barney. Alright, episode 19 is the bachelor party for Lily and Marshall's wedding. And for some reason, Bob Saget, Ted is telling his kids how much he loves strippers. And we find out lore that Barney was in a 10-way. And Mrs. Tutwiler from Sweet Life on Deck is the stripper. Alright, episode 20 is called Showdown. And Barney says, why don't you kiss? Referring to Marshall and Lily. I love watching two chicks make out. Plus 50 evil points for sexism. Another 30 points for fetishizing lesbians. Episode 21 is part 1 of the wedding episode. Something borrowed. Lily says, wow, it's so beautiful. When it's like a soundstage with like 3 tables. And then stupid tile floor they use in Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. And so Barney figures out that he can sexually harass women more if he says it's for the bride. I don't know. No one my age gets married. I don't have any friends, so I don't know if this is a thing, but they're like, you're supposed to do something if it's for the bride and everyone's supposed to do it. So he tells this woman, the bride wants you to walk slower. So he can look at her booty. So plus 50 for SH. And he tells another woman, the bride would like the tension out of my shoulders and would like you in the inappropriately short dress to rub them. Plus 50 to Barney for SH. Alright, episode 22, Something Blue. Barney tells Robin that she's going to get fat, plus 50 points for Fatphobia. Alright, team! Yeah, no touchdowns this season. Congrats! It's only downhill from here, guys. It only gets worse. Alright, season 3, 10 hot, football, Travis Kelce, go Birds. Alright, wait for it, episode 1. Is this a season where Ted gets left at the altar? Here's a good one. Lily and Marshall are married. Robin and Ted broke up. Barney's still a creep. And that's what you missed on Glee. So, episode 1 is called Wait For It. And Barney calls a tattoo on your lower back the Panama City bumper sticker. So, plus 50 points to Barney for racism. Panama has a 0.8 on the HDI scale, so no extra points. We're Not From Here, episode 2. No issues. Third Wheel, episode 3. So they recasted Judy from the pineapple incident. They didn't think I would notice, but I did. And for some reason, old family Ted is telling his kids about when he had a 3-way. I don't know, he's a really good dad. And if you have a 3-way, you get this belt, and either Lily or Robin is like, it's not a real belt, is it? And it's like actually this huge physical belt, like a wrestling belt. And one of the rules is that the aggregate weight of all 3 must be under 400 pounds. And it's just the cognitive dissonance of how much men think women weigh is plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. Also, Bussy Phillips guest stars as one of the 3-weighers in this episode. And I'm just saying, I'm not in like I don't like to comment on people's bodies like that, but she's very attractive, but muscle weighs more than fat, and I just don't think there's any way she weighs less than 170. Men just don't know how much women weigh, and that's important because in this show, like, Barney is established he won't sleep with anyone who's over 130. Yeah, so, and then there was another continuation error because in a different episode, Barney says that he had a 10-way, but then in this episode, he says he never has had a 3-way, so he's never won the belt. And it would be one thing if it was several seasons ago, but it was literally last season, so I mean, that's a goof. This episode is passable because Bussy Phillips is a really good actress, and she's also a Freaks and Geeks alum, like Jason Segel, who plays Marshall. Alright, so episode 4 is called Little Boys. So another thing is that they're trying to set somebody up. I think Robin, and they're saying whenever you set somebody up, you always say they're nice, but, and Barney says she had a huge butt is her butt, which he would eat those words post 2016. I can't believe it used to be like having a big butt was a bad thing. Plus 50 evil points to Barney for Fatphobia. So Robin says about having kids, that doesn't mean I'd want to push a Ferrari through my vagina. And Barney responds, shotgun, which was blink and you'll miss it, but still 50 evil points to Barney for sexual harassment. It's established that Ted doesn't like sex workers and he thinks they're gross, but him and Barney bet money this episode if they can sleep with this one woman first. So it's dangerously close to being prostitution, but at the same time, Ted hates sex workers, but if he has a financial incentive for sex, then it's totally fine, because he's a bro. Also, it's really sad that the actress Kobe Smulders, who plays Robin, was diagnosed with ovarian cancer this season. It makes me sad just to think about how she's filming this comedy show about friends who go to the bar every single night, and that the beauty standard was so thin that a main cast member on a sitcom could have a cancer diagnosis and nobody noticed. And she also mentioned that she was in a lot of pain, chronic pain at the time. And Barney says "mes chiens" to refer to my bitches, but he just said "my dogs." French, I mean, it is technically correct, but French people don't really say that. Like, a real French person would say, like, meuf or pute. Alright, episode 5 is How I Met Everyone Else. This is the episode where Ted meets Carol, and he doesn't know her name. He calls her blah blah online, and she's crazy. So Barney says the only women who troll for men online are hookers, crazy, or dudes. Plus 50 evil points for transphobia to Barney. And Ted says, there's this guy who I pass on the way to work who's all 3, who scares the crap out of me. I assume Ted is talking about a transgender sex worker, so that's plus 50 for transphobia to Ted. And one thing is true, the crazy hot scale is true. What? And one thing that is true, the crazy hot scale is true, because I am both very attractive and also extremely crazy, so that that does check out. So Ted censors smoking a doob as eating a sandwich, but he'll tell his kids by the time he had a 3-way for some reason. So Barney's explaining the crazy hot scale, and it's like one of those things in statistics. It's like where, like, if you pass a certain diagonal, you're too crazy, or like, I think it's like the hotter you are, the crazier you are. And of course it's just referring to women because they never talk about men this way in the show. So Barney says this woman gained 20 pounds and then tried to hit him with a brick. Plus 50 for fatphobia to Barney. Also, why is he so obsessed with women's weight? It's giving Patrick Bateman. Barney says only sleeping with one woman is okay if you're 11. Plus 50 to Barney for Seggulising Minors. Barney calls himself Broda instead of Yoda, so that's 15 points for a terrible joke. I'm Not That Guy, episode 6. And the only thing that matters about this episode is that Marshall has to choose between the terrible evil law firm or the NRDC. But just speaking from experience, because I have a master's degree in international affairs, those lobbying places don't do shit. They're just gonna do like a bunch of you just write a bunch of memos and like be like, yeah, the world's on fire, and then you submit the memos and like nothing happens. Anyway, so for some reason, Ted, when he was younger in school, he saved this guy who was getting bullied. So he finds out that a porn star is also named Ted Mosby, and I don't know why he's telling his kids this either. And Ted goes, why can't you do something better, than naming your porn star persona after me, like planting a tree in Israel. And I've never heard of this Israel. I think it's called Palestine.
Episode
7 is Down Misotropia. So the whole thing is that Marshall and Lily are looking for a new apartment, and it turns out that this apartment is next to a sewer plant and it's really stinky, but they take it anyway. And Barney breaks and enters into the apartment that Lily and Marshall are touring so he can sleep with random women, even though he already has a really nice apartment, the Fortress of Barnitude. So plus 50 to Barney for crime. Barney also tries to steal Lily's bra. Episode 8 is called Spoiler Alert. This episode is that Ted, again, he doesn't like anybody. He never likes any woman ever unless she likes the exact same things as him. So the spoiler is that he's dating this girl named Kathy, and she talks too much, and it's like, oh no, my meat is too juicy and my lobster's too buttery. And again, Ted has always got peeners on the mind. Ted has always got penises on the mind because he says he's thinking of all the things it could possibly be that's wrong with Kathy because his friends see it and he doesn't see it. And so in his mind, he's like picturing her going to the urinal, and like he says, I'm gonna go to the urinal. And she's like, hey, I remember when I had a penis. And to Ted, that is equal to killing puppies or getting teachers arrested falsely. So plus 50 for transphobia to Ted. And also, it's just like, how are the writers progressive enough to include Barney having a gay brother, but still think a potential trans woman would feel safe or comfortable enough to announce that she had bottom surgery to people she just met? Barney suggests that Robin should pour water over her shirt, plus 50 points for SH. Alright, episode 9, Slapsgiving. I said take a shot every time a woman in the show is wearing a tank top, even though it's supposed to be November in New York City. Okay, so Neil Patrick Harris, who plays Barney, real life actor, is just not a good guy either, surprise, surprise, but, so I found out that, he, for a Halloween party, he had a platter of Amy Winehouse, Amy Winehouse's corpse, not that long after she passed away, and it was just like as a gag, I guess, at his party. Also, everyone on Reddit says Neil Patrick Harris is an asshole, and I believe I believe it. But the only thing he did that was based is he was mean to Rachel Bloom, and she's a huge Zionist, so that was accidentally based.
Though of course I support Israel.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Alright, episode 10 is called The Yips. So in this episode, the gang they all decide to go to the gym. Barney invests in the gym with women he says they fat. Plus 50 points for fatphobia to Barney. So his plan is to hit on them, hoping he can sleep with them when they're thin. Why not just hit on the millions of thin women in New York City? I don't know. He says not all of them pay dividends. That one over there by the vending machine, Tanya, she's one Kit Kat away from junk bond status. Meaning that she's been gaining weight, not losing any weight. Plus 50 to Barney for fatphobia, leave women alone. Alright, episode 11 is called The Platinum Rule. They also have another character who's in the entire, I think most of it, called Wendy the Waitress, and I wondered if that was where the waitress joke came from, and It's Always Sunny, because the way they always call her Wendy the Waitress. It's kind of demeaning. They never just say Wendy. Episode 12 is called No Tomorrow. And this is personal for me, okay? Because I'm Irish, so take that Irish shite out of your mouth, Neil Patrick Harris. And he wears a green suit. And they tried it on the St. Patrick's Day. They're like, treat it like it's the last day ever. And Barney says, who wants to kiss the Barney Stone? Which is a really bad joke referring to the Blarney Stone, which if you kiss it gives you the gift of the gab, so plus 15 evil points for a terrible joke. And he wears this ugly bright green suit and thinks it looks good, so another 15 evil points to Barney. Oh, we're getting close to... Oh, spoilers. We're getting close to Ted being left at the altar, which is my favorite arc. Alright. Episode 13 is called 10 Sessions. And Britney Spears is in this episode. She's an ADHD queen. Ted mentions to Stella, which, okay. Ted has a butterfly tattoo from when he went out St. Patrick's Day. He went out with this goth girl. And not goth, I guess she's like alternative. She had like a lot of tattoos. And he gets really drunk. And it turns out that the girl he's with, her ex, is the guy doing the tattoo. And so he gives him a butterfly tattoo on his back. And so anyway, so Stella's the dermatologist who's removing this tattoo. And they're talking about the worst movie ever. And Ted says Manos, Hands of Fate. And I said, wow, nobody knows that bad movie. What's next? The Room. Alright, so Ted says he at the end of, there's 10 sessions to remove the butterfly tattoo, and he says that at the end of the 10 sessions that he's gonna ask her out, and she says she's gonna say no, and he's like, I won't take no for an answer. So guess what, ladies and gentlemen, that is 5-yard penalty to Theodore Mosby. Put him on the 45 line. False start penalty for love bombing Stella. But don't worry, Stella gets her revenge. And what men want women to look like, Shane Dawson. Barney yells at Britney Spears. It's just evil. And he also tricks Ted into thinking that Stella has folliculophilia, only attracted to men with mustaches. I think I have that, unfortunately.
Yeah, latte hottie. She's known throughout the land, right? No, it's like my wife, right?
And Ted says to Stella at the end of the 10 sessions that she didn't actually say the word no. So that's gonna age really well, Ted. And we find out that Ted went to Wesleyan University, which I've not heard of before, but it's in Middletown, Connecticut, and Stella went to Stanford. We know in the timeline now that it's around March because the last episode was St. Patrick's Day episode. And Stella's in a tank top, and it's because Carter and Craig would want to see women's bazingas. Because in reality, New York is chilly, even in March still, so. Episode 14 is called The Bracket. Yeah, baby! A voice critical meme. Yeah, baby! That's what this whole video is themed after. Let's go!
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
And so we know it's March because they're doing March Madness. So the women are just still wearing tank tops, even though it makes no sense. And Ted helps Marshall steal a chalkboard from Lily's classroom for March Madness. So that's 50 points to Ted for actual crime. And we find out that Barney is desperate enough that he will go and hit on women at a hardware store. I guess check your local Ace. Check your local Ace Hardware. He says there's 4 types of women who go to the hardware store. And one he lists is lesbians who will let him watch. So plus 30 for fetishizing lesbians. Barney also hits on women at a museum, and he pretends to be blind so he can feel this lady's face. Plus 50 points for sexual harassment. Barney says that he should be in prison for perjury, but he doesn't want to talk about work, so he's a literal criminal who has ties to the Chinese mafia and North Korea, and we're supposed to just think he's cute and charming. And we find out that he's a scrapbook of all the women he slept with, which in this instance, they know they're being photographed, so that's good that they know at least. So they make a bracket of all the women he slept with, and like they got drunk and wanted to figure out what woman would be the most mad at him, and that's who'd want to sabotage him. And we find out that he actually slept with a woman and left her stranded and stole her truck. So that's plus 50 points for crime. If you're guilty of grand larceny in the 4th degree, pursuant to New York Penal 155.308, you will face up to 4 years in state prison. And Barney mentions that at one point he's pretty sure he sold a woman. New York Penal Law 230.34 makes the crime of New York Penal Law 230.34 makes the crime of sex trafficking a Class B felony with a maximum sentence of 25 years imprisonment. In addition, a court may order a defendant to pay a fine of $5,000 or double the defendant's gain from the commission of the crime. Alright, episode 15, The Chain of Screaming. Bob Odenkirk is in this episode, so yay. But this episode isn't relatable to a 2026 audience because none of us have jobs. Barney says, he's the chain of screaming is, Barney says it's just corporate America. It's like a motivational tool, like Christmas bonuses or sexual harassment. This is just really evil because he's openly admitting he will sexually harass women at his work. So plus 50. And if you think he's joking, his face is stone cold when he says this. And it implies a lot because Barney works a corporate job, so he's okay with sexually assaulting his employees. Gross. And no one cares that he said that. And he works at a pretty major company and makes a ton of money, so it's really creepy. Barney says to Lily, control your woman, referring to Marshall, so plus 30 evil points for sexist microaggression. At this point, I have no idea why Robin is hanging out with them. She broke up with Ted. She's a rich news anchor lady from Canada. I think she's too good for this. Alright, episode 16 is called Sandcastles in the Sand. Ted says, what in God's creation is going on with women? Ted says, what in God's creation is going on with Robin's breasts? Plus 50 points to Ted for sexual harassment. Also, continuation error. They ask if James Vanderbeek, who plays Simon, took Robin's virginity when she said in the Empire State Building episode that the guy in the pink bedroom, who turned out to be gay, took her virginity. And the whole point is to get revenge because Simon dumped her in the back of the van because he wanted to get back to... dumped her in the back of the van because he wanted to get back with Louise Marsh because she has a jacuzzi. So Robin's trying to win the breakup, so they're tallying the points. And Barney says, starting now with two big ones right here, 50 points for sexual harassment. And she says, thank you. I don't think I'd want my platonic male friends to talk to me that way. And the whole thing too is that like you regress when you hang out with somebody that you haven't hung out with in a long time. So when Robin sees Simon James Vanderbeek, she starts acting like she did as a teenager, with like a thick Canadian accent. And so Marshall brings up Lily and her friend Michelle. And Barney asks if they make out, plus 30 evil points to Barney for fetishizing lesbian. Also, this episode debuts Sandcastles in the Sand, which is Robin Sparkle's second song. And in the song, she's like talking about how Simon taught her to French. And when I watched this show, I was like 12 years old, so I thought she meant to say taught me French, so definitely should not be watching this show when I was that young. Alright, episode 17 is called The Goat. And this is Ted's 30th birthday, and I'm 26, so I'm not older unk like Ted, okay? So Barney has an offshore account to pay Marshall for helping him with his bro code book, because he wants to see if he broke the bro code, because he slept with Robin. And he says Marshall will be paid by a toy factory in Pyongyang, so that's 50 for crime, hiding offshore accounts. But Barney also tells Marshall to get cracking. Nice.
Ah, yes. Perfect New York City tank top in March/April. And was definitely not the showrunners being creepy and wanting to look at a model's bazingas.
In a flashback, Ted is helping him hit on women. And he says that Ted is a pre-op transsexual opera singer who's from the Russian mob. And Ted says da, so he's co-signing Barney's transphobia. So plus 50 points for transphobia to Barney and Ted. And so Ted finally realizes that Barney's a bad person and doesn't want to be his friend. Good for him. Alright, so episode 18 is called Rebound Bro. So Ted's talking to Stella, and they're dating, and they haven't had sex in 2 months, and she's like, I have something to tell you. And Ted goes, oh my god, you're 14, I knew it. So plus 50 for Seggulising Minors. Also, don't worry, Stella leaves Ted at the altar, so there's karma for him being creepy. So Barney illegally filmed a video of him and Robin having sex and blackmails Robin into coming to help him with this freak wingman. Plus 50 for crime. Alright, episode... Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Season 4 is the season he gets left at the altar. I apologize. Episode 19, Everything Must Go. Ted calls a little girl in Lily's kindergarten class a bitch, so plus 30 to Ted for calling women sluts or bitches. Robin remarks that every woman loves to get catcalled with a 2-syllable damn or something. That's how you know the show was written by men, because no. Episode 20, Miracles. Ted gets hit by a cab and dies. Unfortunately not. And Barney also gets hit by a bus. Yay! And that was what made Barney and Ted become friends again, was him being hit by a bus. And overall, this episode was 10 out of 10 because Barney and Ted both get hit by moving vehicles. Season 4, 10, hot, rusted, at the Love Shack. Episode 1 is called Do I Know You? So Ted proposes to Stella with a toy giraffe he gets in the arcade. Which is I don't know, it's a pretty bad proposal. And also, Ted gets a 5-yard penalty for false start for proposing to Stella without knowing anything about her. Okay. And also he poisons Stella with peanuts. And he's really mad that Stella's never seen Star Wars, but neither have I, so cry about it. Alright, episode 2 is called The Best Burger in NYC. And Barney says they're all weird music with the side of rice. He's talking about Chinese, Indian, and Mexican food. So that's plus 50 to Barney for racism. Regis Philbin is in this episode. I have no idea who he is, but he died in 2020. I'm sorry, sir. Rest in peace. And I said taking a break from this bad show to watch the new episode of Pluribus.
It's Plurbin time.
Episode 3 is called I Heart New Jersey. And we learned that Ted hates New Jersey for some reason, but how he feels about New Jersey is how everybody should feel about Pennsylvania. Like, nobody should live in Pennsylvania. And so Barney tries to pick up a lesbian, and that is actually essay if successful, so plus 50 points for essay. And I really don't understand why Ted hates New Jersey so much. Like, trust Pennsylvania is so much worse. Like, imagine a $7.50 minimum wage that hasn't changed since 2009. At least in New Jersey, the minimum wage is $15 an hour. And 8 months of winter, 1 million potholes. It's just not a good state to live in. And okay. Alright, timeout. Ted gets another 5-yard penalty for false start. Because why does he want to marry Stella if he doesn't want to live in her nice house in New Jersey? And they didn't even talk about this before he proposed. Dumb. He's back at the 40-yard line. Alright, episode 4 is called Intervention. Plus 50 evil points for essay to Barney. He pretends to be an old man from the future and tells this lady she needs to sleep with young Barney to save global warming. That is literally just essay. She only sleeps with him because she thinks it'll save humanity, so it's weird and creepy. Women aren't children. Alright, 15 evil points for spending more money than is realistic, because where did he get old man makeup? Plus 15 for spending more money than is realistic, because why did he get old man makeup and from whom? And Barney gives Stuart alcohol when he's an alcoholic. Plus 15 evil points for encouraging binge drinking. And Barney refuses to sleep with a 31-year-old woman, even though he's in 80-year-old makeup. And he finds a girl who will sleep with him when he looks old, but the gang says that since she's French, it doesn't count. I lived in France. I've not heard of this. I guess it's a stereotype that French women like old guys. I don't know. It's kind of the opposite, because Macron, like, his wife is a lot older than him. Oh, yay. This is a good episode. Alright, episode 5 is called Shelter Island. And this is the episode where Ted gets left at the altar. Woo! And the set is so bad. It looks like a Disney Channel set. And Ted always says he got left at the altar, but he didn't even get left at the altar. He got left at the hotel room because they didn't even have a budget for a wedding chapel. Episode 15 is called Happily Ever After. And How I Met Your Mother copies a Seinfeld episode. Barney dates a woman in jail and says it's easier because she can only call him once a week. Literally, George said the same thing in Seinfeld, almost word for word. But it was done better in Seinfeld because George was the joke and the woman in jail was nice. How I Met Your Mother makes the women be crazy joke. How I Met Your Mother punches down and Seinfeld punches up. Barney goes under a table of women to presumably look under their skirts. And timeout. Barney goes under a table of women, presumably to look under their skirts. That is a 15-yard penalty to Barney for unsportsmanlike conduct. Alright, episode 16 is called Not a Father's Day. Robin says maybe she'll have kids when she turns 30. What am I, a child bride?
Again, I'm only 27. What am I, a child bride?
I'm not ready for kids at the adolescent age of 30. So Barney draws a card for Not a Father's Day and draws an illustration of what Marshall calls a tie hooker. How would you know she was tie? And how would you know she was a sex worker based on a drawing? I don't know. But it's probably an extremely offensive drawing, so plus 50 to Barney for racism. Ted tells Robin when you're done shaking off at the urinal because she doesn't want kids. So any woman who doesn't want kids is manly, I guess. Plus 50 to Ted for sexism. Maybe all those weird Gen Z guys who hate child-free women watch this show. And Barney realizes his fan base is all ugly incels. The writers were right for once. Episode 8 is called Woo! Plus 15 for Weird American Propaganda. Barney gives a weird speech about how the building should go to Ted, not the Swedish guys. And they make a joke where Barney doesn't know what the show Mad Men is. Of course he wouldn't, he has horrible taste. And he said he's gonna smack a secretary on the ass. And Marshall goes, that's totally what they would do on that show. And Barney goes, what show? Barney is a menace. He just commits work sexual harassment casually at the same rate of the men in Mad Men, which is satire. Plus 50 to Barney for sexual harassment. Also, Ted equates women to birds. Plus 30 evil points for sexist microaggressions. How are the writers so dumb that they reference Mad Men, a show that calls out modern society by using the 1960s as a mirror? And the men on that show literally call women hens. And then, while referencing Mad Men, How I Met Your Mother fails to understand the satire and compares woo girls to hummingbirds. But have they ever compared men to animals? I don't think so. Do the writers of How I Met Your Mother think Mad Men is a historical documentary about the 1960s? I can't. Alright, so this is the worst episode ever. It's called The Naked Man. So this is just sexual assault. Don't do this. And Seinfeld is more progressive than this show, and Seinfeld came out in the 90s. Because there's an episode of Seinfeld where Elaine's date takes it out and she's really freaked out and everyone thinks it's weird. But in this episode, the stupid Mitch guy, naked man guy, gets naked and nobody cares. And they're like, oh, that's funny, let's try it. And I can't see. So Mitch gets naked and Robin lives with Ted in his apartment at this time above McLaren's. And Mitch is naked waiting for her. And I can't see if the curtains are open, but since they live above a bar in Manhattan, Mitch is sitting around in the apartment naked, and people can see full nudity through the window, which is possible with patrons coming in and out of McLaren's. So evil Mitch could get charged with New York Penal Law 245.01, exposure of a person with 15 days in jail, and a $250 fine. Also, he might have to register as a sex offender. And so the gang rushes up there in case Robin shoots Mitch, but that would be self-defense since he's a man naked in your apartment. And for some reason they think Robin's in the wrong. And Marshall calls Robin a slut for sleeping with Mitch because he's naked when Mitch is the one assaulting Robin. And Barney had to clarify that he's always wondered what it's like to sleep with tall women, and I don't mean big, so he hates fat women, plus 50 for fatphobia. Alright, episode 10, The Fight. Ted's a little baby because he got left at the altar and he doesn't want anyone to feel bad for him. And I say grown man getting into fights, boring. Plus they weren't drinking fight milk. 4 bodyguards, 5 bodyguards.
Fight milk! The first alcoholic, dairy-based protein drink, 4 bodyguards!
5 bodyguards!
And Barney also said that he fought 9 sexual harassment cases in 1. So plus 50 to Barney for crimes. And Marshall says, I'll tell you what I was doing. Barney says, your nails. Ted says, a relationship, because Marshall didn't join the fight. Ted says, a relationship quiz in this month's Cosmo. Barney says, you're best not to cry when Big came back for Carrie at the end of Sex and the City movie. So plus 60 to Barney for 2 sexist microaggressions and 30 for Ted also being a douche with sexist microaggressions. And Ted and Barney get sued for assault because they punched random people. And then Barney says people get shivved in that joint, talking about jail. And I think he was trying to do a black accent. So plus 30 points to Barney for racist accent. Alright, episode 11, Little Minnesota. Barney makes up creepy songs about how Ted's sister is hot. And it's creepy, but not as age, so no points. Ted used to watch his neighbor, Miss Gotweld's room when she changed her clothes, which is a crime in New York, but I had to check Ohio because Ted is from Cleveland. So under section 290708 in Ohio laws and administrative rules, section B, no person shall willingly trespass or otherwise secretly or surreptitiously videotape, film, photograph, broadcast, stream, or otherwise record another person in a place where the person has reasonable expectation of privacy for the purpose of viewing the private areas of that person. So plus 50 points to Ted for crime. And plus 15 points to Ted for a terrible joke. He says Barney is like if Weird Al Yankovic wrote songs about banging his sister, which Weird Al Yankovic would never do that because he's a nice person. And how long did it take for the writers to come up with this joke? 2 seconds. And Robin mentions that no hair products or manicures makes these Minnesota bar guys real men. And that's how you know men wrote this. Please shower. Or at least have basic hygiene. Alright, episode 12. Benefits. Alright, so I have a useless master's degree in international affairs. So I'm really a good choice to analyze this horrible joke. Basically, Barney says that every single international crisis could be solved by sex. And Ted says the conflict in the Middle East. And Barney says Gaza strippers, which is just disgusting because Gaza is a piece of land that is lawless and governmentless, basically where 2.5 million people, displaced Palestinians, live. And NPR describes it as the world's largest open-air prison. Hamas took control of Gaza in 2007, so the writers are well aware of what is happening in Palestine at this point, and still chose to say Gaza strippers, c'est dégueulasse. plus 50 for racism, and because of the genocide, Gaza used to be at a 0.7 on the HDI scale and is now at a 0.6, so Barney gets an extra 10 racism points. Next, Ted says apartheid, and Barney says part her thighs. The history of apartheid South Africa is also brutal. Like, couldn't Barney do a stupid conflict like the Cold War or something? Why is he choosing literal genocides to use for sex puns, even something older like World War I? No one would be offended by, because everybody who participated in World War I is dead. So plus 50 for racism to Barney. But South Africa has an HDI of 0.7, so he's safe for now. Episode 13 is called 3 Days of Snow. So Ted and Barney hit on college girls from Arizona, which is creepy. Ted and Barney hit on college girls from Arizona, which is creepy, but they're 21, so I'll allow it. Barney says he's in love with Robin, but wants to hook up with college girls 15 years younger than him. Okay, sure. And I was like, dang, why Carl kinda. And the gang wants to buy a bar. And they say awesome too much. Episode 14, the Possible. The lady who reads the Powerball numbers, Barney makes up this creepy game where he relates the numbers to the lady reading them and says that 21 is the age she'll move to New York City and tries to be in Vogue. The creepy guy will take 53 photos of her before she realizes he doesn't work for Vogue. I didn't find that funny because women have died that way, so... Anyways, I just noticed that the writers are really mean to Jason Segel. There's so many jokes about how it's like he's girly or he's not manly because he has fun hobbies like dancing. And Ted says it's easier to dance when you don't have external genitalia because Marshall likes dancing. Honestly, Marshall should divorce Lily, let Robin get deported back to Canada, poison Ted's beer, and tell the police about Barney's sex crimes and move back to Minnesota. Because he's the only good character in this show, and they're so rude to him for no reason. Plus 50 points to Ted for transphobia. Marshall says that his dancer's hip... Marshall says that if his dancer's hip gets any worse, he'll need surgery and the teasing isn't funny. And Ted says vaginal rejuvenation surgery, plus 50 points to Ted for transphobia. And I wouldn't blame Marshall at all if he killed Ted. Also, Marshall needing to dance to burn off energy is literally neurodivergent stimming, and it's cute, and leave him alone. Alright. Episode 15 is called The Stinsons. Barney says that his type is Asian with some boob, which I would usually hate for him to equate an entire race of women to boob, but curvy Asian women are hot, so in an interview in 2015, Neil Patrick Harris revealed that he found Nick Jonas attractive at 19 or 20 when he was 42, and that it was a bit of a problem because he's not allowed to think he was good looking yet. And I have to give points for this because this joke made me sigh so heavily. If you don't know, Neil Patrick Harris was a stupid child actor on this stupid show called Doogie Howser, MD. In this episode, Barney hires a fake family, and the child actor who plays Greg Heffley, a Diary of a Wimpy Kid, who plays his son Tyler, is a bad actor, and he goes, "Call me crazy, but child actors were better in the 80s," which literally made me go, "Oh, brother, this guy stinks." So plus 15 to Barney for terrible joke. And also plus 15 points to Barney for paying more money than is realistic, because why would he be spending money on a fake family to impress his mom? And also, the actor who plays Greg Heffley is a better actor than all the adults on How I Met Your Mother. And Barney says Among Us. Alright, episode 16 is called Sorry Bro. And I really wanted to like this episode as a kid. Oh, I really like this episode as a kid. Maybe it won't be so bad. Because Laura Prepon is a really good actress. And Taron Killam is Kobe Smulders' real life husband, and he shows up on the show so much. And he worked at Goliath National Bank and also happened to work at that evil law firm. It's the writers are so lazy. They keep casting him. Episode 17 is called The Front Porch. And they used the song from The Big Lebowski. Like, this show is anywhere near as good as that movie. Barney thinks Marshall's Scrooge nightshirt thing is a dress, and he says, "At least I'm not the one wearing a dress." Plus 30 points to Barney for sexist microaggression. And they reference The Big Lebowski several times in this episode, and I legitimately think they do not understand that movie is satire either, and they probably just think that movie is just dudes being bros. Wow, such a progressive show, guys. Episode 18 is called Old King Clancy, and Ted hits the annoying boss with a chair when he fires him, so plus 50 to Ted for crime. Episode 19 is called Murtaugh. And I just think Rob, Charlie, and Glenn behind It's Always Sunny are really good writers, because they were just literally parodying How I Met Your Mother as it aired, because How I Met Your Mother had an episode called Murtaugh, and then they literally do The Gang Makes Lethal Weapon 5, which I think has been removed from Hulu, probably for good reason, but I think it's really funny that they're like turning it on its head, and they're like, this show is so nostalgic for the 80s, and they're like, actually the 80s were terrible, and let's have a bunch of terrible people be reminiscent about it. Alright, episode 20 is called Mosby's Designs. And Allison Hannigan is pregnant, and she has to go on pregnancy leave, so Barney tells this really bad joke where he says, "What's the difference between peanut butter and jam?" And he whispers it, but it's like, I can't peanut butter my dick in your ass, so it's amazing comedy. And so Ted starts his own thing called Mosby's Designs, and Barney is upset that Ted didn't hire a hot chick to bang as his assistant and instead hired a guy named PJ that would be workplace harassment and assault, and Barney talks about it a lot, so he's definitely assaulted many women at work. Plus 50 for SH. Episode 21 is called The 3 Days Rule. So, timeout. Ted gets a 5-yard penalty for false start because he meets this girl Holly, who's really Barney and Marshall texting him, but he tells her he wants to marry her, even though he just got her number that day. So he's tied. He's on the 35 line with Barney. Okay. So episode 22 is called Right Place, Right Time. So we find out that Barney slept with an intersex woman and made fun of her because she poses for Sexy magazine, and Sexy has 2 X's and 1 Y. So plus 50 to Barney for transphobia. Also, again, It's Always Sunny had been making fun of this show because it's really similar to how Max sleeps with a trans woman at the gym. Episode 23 is called As Fast as She Can. And Barney says a check's so big that if you had sex with it, you wouldn't tell your buddies. So, don't have sex with a plus-size woman. If you're not into that, nobody's holding a gun to your head. Plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. Continuation error. Barney gets a $200 ticket, but it was established before in the Arrivederci Fiero episode that he can't drive. Episode 24 is called The Leap. No issues. Ted gets beat up by a goat, and Robin and Barney start dating. And the Professor Mosby arc starts. Alright. We're on to season 5. Still 4 more to go. Episode 1 is called Definitions. Notice how there's no issues when Barney is in a relationship because he's super evil and annoying when single. Double date is
Played these games before! I said I played these games before!
Alright, episode 3 is called Robin 101. Ted mansplains about all of Robin's habits and it's really condescending. Plus 50 evil points to Ted for mansplaining. And it turns out Ted was wrong about most of the stuff he assumed about Robin anyway, so he was just really overconfident and douchey for no reason, like always. Episode 4 is called The Sexless Innkeeper. Ted wears ugly tweed for his stupid professor era, plus 15 points to Ted for wearing an ugly outfit but thinking it looks good. And it's also established that it's fall of 2009 and still all the ladies at the bar are wearing tank tops, so it's literally just Carter Bays and Craig Thomas wanting to look at models bazingas. And also the men who create the show can look like this and the women look like this. Like, come on. I said, whoa guys, she's getting a little close to being a size 6. Don't want to have anyone else pass a size 4, come on. Barney has this poem called The Sexist Innkeeper, where he says she weighs 16 stone, which is 224 pounds. Men do not know how much women weigh because it looks like this woman is well over 300 pounds, plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. And Marshall also says a line that goes so hard. He says, I hope those underwater aliens are cold-blooded, then you guys will get along just fine. Boom! 1 billion cool points to Marshall. Episode 5 is called Dual Citizenship. Barney starts chanting USA for no reason because Robin is Canadian. Plus 15 evil points for weird American propaganda. Episode 6 is called Bagpipes. And Marshall does the dishes, so it's really hot. So 300 hot points to Marshall. And Barney fantasizes about being a 1960s husband. Plus 50 points to Barney for mansplaining. Marshall hates dishes. Confirmed ADHD. And they got plastic dishes, and I'm really proud of Marshall because he's taking steps to help with his ADHD because dishes just, I hate doing dishes, and I'm just really proud of him for getting help, you know. Episode 7 is called The Rough Patch. Barney says about girlfriends, do not humanize the enemy Ted, so it's just straight up sexism. Why are women the enemy? Plus 50 points to Barney for sexism. And Barney tells a woman that he's sleeping with that the flashing green light means it's off. So plus 50 points for crime. It's unlawful surveillance in the 2nd degree Penal Law 250.45, a Class E felony that occurs when an individual intentionally installs or uses an imaging device to secretly view, broadcast, or record a person's intimate parts. And I noted that the show was already feeling really flanderized by season 5, which is crazy because it was never really that good to begin with, and they already ran out of material. Episode 8 is called The Playbook. Barney has a play called The Don't Drink That, where he tells a woman he saw a guy slip something in the drink, plus 30, lying to a woman to gain affection. He has a play called The Mrs. Stinfire. Barney dresses up as Miss Doubtfire, and somehow that works. I guess. Plus 30, lying to a woman to gain affection. And as we all know, there's nothing sexier than a man 20 years older dressing in old lady drag. Another play he has is called The Lorenzo Van Lauterhorn, where he pretends to be dumb, and famous dumb, and also dumb, and he creates a dumb website, and it's dumb. Plus 30 for lying to women to gain affection. He's another play called The He's Not Coming. Plus 30, lying to women to gain affection. Plus 15, spending more money than is realistic, because he'll go up to the Empire State Building and tell women he's not coming, and that tickets are not cheap for that. Alright, and timeout. Barney gets a 5-yard penalty for illegal formation for lying about being a nice guy. He has a play where he pretends to be Ted and said he got left at the altar. So that is a 5-yard penalty, which puts him at the 30-yard line. I just realized yards. I haven't thought about yards in a while. They use meters in Europe, so what are yards? Okay. He says Al-Qaeda is responsible for stealing his playbook and also pronounces it wrong. He says Al-Qaeda, plus 50 for racism. Barney calls actresses slutty, plus 30 for calling women sluts. Barney has a play where he says his penis grants wishes, only if you rub it hard enough. So, plus 30 for lying to women to gain affection, and plus 50 for sexual assault, making a woman engage in sexual acts while coerced or bribed with fake wishes. And also Barney, who is white, wears a turban, so plus 50 for racism. Alright, I'm the referee and I make the rules, okay? So Barney puts a can of Pringles in his pants to make his junk look bigger, which is literally what trans men do with a packing thing. Yet Barney remains extremely transphobic, so that's plus 50 points for literally engaging in gender-affirming actions while being wildly transphobic. Alright, episode 9 is called Slapsgiving 2. And the show is already getting nostalgic for older seasons when it's only been airing for like 4 years at this point. And we find out that Chris Elliott, who's from Groundhog's Day and also Schitt's Creek, plays Lily's dad, and he's obsessed with board games. Alright, episode 10 is called The Window. So this is kind of a reference to Something About Mary, which is like the worst movie ever. So it's like this girl that Ted has always wanted to date, but men are obsessed with her and she's never single. So Barney refers to Ted and he says where she will have no interactions with the man, calling him a woman, plus 50 points to Barney for sexism. This whole episode is a 10-yard penalty for past interference, interfering with a woman's career/dreams, literally getting Lillian Marshall to babysit Maggie, the girl he has a crush on, so he can prevent her from being taken again. 10-yard penalty for that. So he's at 35. Episode 11 is called Last Cigarette Ever. And if this was a French TV, all of them would smoke cigarettes and nobody would care. And they'd all be 90 pounds with black teeth. So this is how you know it's an American show, because in France they would be like, "This is healthy for you. Americans are the ones who eat the hamburger and the sodas, and we have no sodas in France at all." And also, I know this video is about Ted and Barney, but it just really grosses me out how the whole team, including Dawn, all wear underpants because they don't care about the morning show. And I feel like the creeps who just made this show wanted Dawn's genitalia to be in Robin's face, because they have been making her do a lot of stuff that isn't even comedy. It's just like fetish shit, and making her pour wine all over her chest, or it makes me feel bad for Kobe. All right, everyone, it's 5 o'clock. Actually, it's 6. So, okay. Cheers. Oh. Alright, so episode 12, Girls versus Suits. It's a theater kid episode. Theater kids who like Neil Patrick Harris probably love Dear Evan Hansen because they... Wait. Theater kids who love Dear Evan Hansen love Neil Patrick Harris because they love male manipulators. Barney tells the girl he's hitting on that Suits and insecure women, I just hate them. So, plus 30 points for lying to women to gain affection, emotional or physical. So Barney's talking about a suit here, but it sounds like he's talking about a kid. So he says he was amazing with the ladies, they just couldn't stay off him, and the girl asked how old was he. He says 7, so plus 50 for Seggulising Minors. Alright. So, 10-yard penalty to Ted for going after a student, which is prohibited against the university, which could lead to issues with her getting her degree. Okay, yeah, and so Neil Patrick Harris literally has this song written for him. Nothing suits me like a suit, and like his voice is straining, and this song is written for him. So I don't know why he's like is so insistent on singing all the time, especially singing in such a high range when like his voice is always straining. So I don't know who told him he can sing that high, but they didn't like you. Alright, episode 13 is called Jenkins. And Jenkins avoids pronouns, so slay non-binary icon Jenkins. Oh yeah, and they say that Marshall is the reacher and not the settler in him and Lily's relationship, and that's blasphemy because Marshall is literally so cute.
It's cuffing season and all the girls are leaving to get a big boy. I need a big boy.
So Ted goes binge drinking with his students from his architecture class. So plus 15 points for Ted for encouraging binge drinking. Alright, episode 14 is called Perfect Week. So keep in mind that at this point it's established that Barney has slept with 200 plus women, but nobody calls him a slut for trying to get a stupid perfect week. And so in his mind, he's talking to this like sports anchor guy, and the sports anchor says, not a single fatty impressive. But the news anchor is in Barney's mind, so Barney is still being fatphobic, plus 50 evil points for fatphobia. And it's so annoying too, because Robin sleeps with that stupid Mitch guy for doing the naked man, and then everyone calls her a slut, but Barney sleeps with 200 plus women, and then he's getting like a sports anchor to host him and hype him up. And it's in his head, but it still is showing the double standards of the writers, because like it's cool for him to do it, but if women do it, then they're just gross. Ted is really racist, and there's this girl in his class who's like Vietnamese, and he says cook poo, and he's like, oh my god, he's like, who's making a fake name? He's such a dick. He's like, oh, cook poo, what? And so 50 evil points to Ted for racism. And I just thought the cook poo joke was really bad, because it reminded me of another show called Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and in that show, Kimmy dates a Vietnamese guy, and his name is Dong, and she makes fun of him for that, but then he goes, Kimmy means boobs in Vietnamese, so, I mean, like, that, I thought that was a good joke, it's cute, but then, like, in How I Met Your Mother, it's just literally just, it's weird, it's not even making fun of Ted, the joke should be making fun of Ted for being such an asshole, but it's not. It's like literally just making fun of the Vietnamese girl being named Cook Poo, and it's like, this is like bully humor. Like, that she can't control if her name means something different in English if she's not from the country. Like, I don't. Alright, episode 15 is called Rabbit or Duck, and Robin ends up dating Dawn, even though he's really weird and has been waving his dingleberry in her face for has been waving his genitals in front of her face for like the entire news segment that they're on, and they start dating. And it's really frustrating because it's December and the women are not wearing any stockings or anything. They're just wearing like skin tight dresses. Alright, episode 16 is called Hooked. Barney says, soon a couple of not so fabulous gay guys enter. Neil Patrick Harris is such a pick-me. 50 points to homophobia for Barney, or to Barney for homophobia. And so the lady who plays Maureen in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, she plays Henrietta. And this whole episode is about keeping somebody on the hook. So Ted is keeping Henrietta on the hook because he's never gonna date her. But he likes that she gives him massages or foot massages or whatever. So that is 5-yard penalty for delay of game, because Ted was dragging out the relationship with Henrietta without commitment because he likes that she's nice to him, and even though he's not attracted to her at all. What is that, like a... And Barney gets hooked on prescription drugs. He said he found a bunch of purple pills and he took them, and he's an opiate addict now, and nobody talks about it ever again. So plus 15 of Barney for crimes. Episode 17 is called Of Course. This is a good episode because Barney has to learn the word no. Ted says the name of the book. The name of the book is Of Course You're Still Single, Take a Look at Yourself, You Dumb Slut. Plus 30 to Ted for calling women sluts. And I noted that it's actually so funny how Jason Segel and Josh Radnor both have better voices than Neil Patrick Harris, but they don't sing as much. Because I guess Neil Patrick Harris was like the golden Broadway boy at the time. Ted says Robin looks like the most expensive prostitute ever. Plus 50 to Ted for degrading women in sex work. Episode 18 is called Say Cheese. And his girlfriend Karen comes back, played by Laura Prepon, and that's why this is one of the only good episodes whenever she's in it, because she's so funny. And episode 19, Zoo or False. Barney pretends to be Neil Armstrong just so they can do this stupid joke where the woman's like, Neil, and he's like, I'm not Neil, but like you get it because his real name is Neil. Plus 30 to Barney for lying to women to gain affection. Barney gets upset that he slept with a 31-year-old instead of a 28-year-old. People are dying, Kim. And that's plus 50 evil points to Barney for sexism. And Ted gets 15 evil points for dressing like Will Schuester. Episode 20 is called Homewreckers. Boring, sappy episode, but no issues. Episode 21 is called Twin Beds. And both Ted and Barney get a 10-yard penalty for trying to interfere with Robin's career by showing up drunk and trying to win her back right before she had to leave for work. So he's at the 15. Oh, so guess what? Ted made another touchdown. Sports. Alright, episode 22 is called Robots versus Wrestlers. And Barney tells Lily that if she has a daughter, the minute she turns 18, he's going to have sex with her. Sounds like something Neil Patrick Harris would say to Nick Jonas. Plus 50 to Barney for Seggulising Minors. Barney also says that if anything that comes out of your baby gets on my suits, I get to touch Lily's boobs. Plus 50 to Barney for essay. Alright, episode 23 is called The Wedding Bride. Barney says it, referring to the relationship, gets ruined sooner or later when she turns 30, plus 50 to Barney for sexism. Barney also says that he prefers women with eating disorders because they think they're fat, but they aren't. Angry sex, and also skips breakfast. That's just really disgusting. Like, okay, episode 24 is called Doppelgangers. We see Barney shredding the corporate guidelines on sexual harassment. Again, we know he works for a really big company. Plus 50 to Barney for sexual harassment. Plus 15 points to Barney for spending more than is realistic. He rented out an entire cab. And if he had no cab driver's license, it would be illegal. But he charged Marshall $27.50, so I guess that the license is legal. But still an extraordinary amount of money to spend. Okay. We get another 10-yard penalty to Barney for pass interference by saying that Robin needs the approval of the group to move to Chicago for a better job. Yeah, in the end of the episode, Lily and Marshall say that Barney's gonna be the baby's uncle, the future baby. Even though he literally said he would sleep with their daughter as soon as she turns 18, which is really creepy. Ted dyes his hair blonde, and for some reason, Ted with the blonde hair is kind of, why you gonna? Alright, so season 5 was another touchdown for Ted. So let's reset the board.
Before we move on to season 6, let's take a break to talk about the bloopers of How I Met Your Mother. So one thing I noticed when I was rewatching the bloopers is that they're better than the actual show. And it's kind of incredible that Carter Bays and Craig Thomas decided to tone it down. It's almost as if the actors were too charismatic and progressive for the show's terrible writing, that it made the writers insecure. Because Josh Radnor will try to improv some playfulness into the really transphobic jokes, and they will just cut it out. Why? This could have been a much better show if the actors were allowed to improv more. Like, for example, the joke in season 2 where Ted is imagining the future and Robin says, "I used to be a dude." In the bloopers, Ted goes, "Oh," like he thinks it's hot. And that's better than anything the writers came up with, but they cut it out because it ruins their shitty joke that Ted is scared of trans women.
I used to be a dude.
Oh?
Also, when Josh Radnor said he auditioned for Jim in The Office, I didn't see it, but I see it in the bloopers. He's really good at being a straight man / sarcastic, better than the Ted Mosby character. Also, after that joke where Barney says, "I can't go to the wedding dress shop, I have this thing, a penis," then in the bloopers Kobe goes, "Me too," and everyone starts laughing, and Ted goes, "It's true, I've seen it," just in a non-judgmental way.
We'll all have a wedding dress camp out. It'll be fun.
I can't go. I have this thing.
What thing?
A penis?
Me too.
It's true.
Like, I can't imagine having actors who improv this good and then just not using any of the footage because you want to showcase your terrible mid-2000s frat bro writing. And the only person in the bloopers who seemed most like their character was Neil Patrick Harris, which is just not a good thing, but it definitely tracks from what you've seen with the Amy Winehouse platter and the comments about Nick Jonas.
The board is reset. Alright, season 6, let's go, team! Episode 1 is called Big Days. Plus 15 to Barney for a horrible joke. He says, "Are you there, Barney? It's me, horny," which is a terrible, terrible play off of "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret." I think that's what's called. Barney decides he wants to go smell random women at the bar. I don't know how to categorize that. Barney says that girls are like cartons of milk. Each one has a hot expiration date and you've just hit yours. Plus 50 to Barney for sexism. Ted finds out his ex-girlfriend Cindy is gay, and that's because he's such a douche. Barney takes a picture of Cindy and the other girl kissing, so plus 30 to Barney for fetishizing lesbians. So episode 2 is called Cleaning House. Barney thinks he's black because his brother's black, and then he meets his brother's dad. And he says, this explains why I was so good at basketball. I'm black. So that plus 50 to Barney for racism.
I'm like, bitch, that's my cookie. That's my juice, okay? Carry on.
He also says, try to hail a cab in Manhattan. No one's stopping for this. And he points to his face. So he's making a joke about how he's black and underprivileged, I guess. So plus 50 to Barney for racism. And Neil Patrick Harris does an annoying black accent when he sings Stand By Me. So plus 30 for racist accent. And on that note, black people love to sing Stand By Me with their estranged sons. Carter Bays and Greg Thomas, probably. What's next? Asian people singing Kung Fu Fighting, or Latinos sing La Cucaracha. Amazing writing, guys. Episode 3 is called Unfinished. Barney says he's talking about women at the bar. 3 chicks, 1 hot, 1 kind of hot, and 1 I'm assuming is really funny. Plus 30 points for calling women ugly. And notice how they never talk about men like that in this show. They're never like, look at this ugly, ugly, ugly man. Like, interesting. Ted sexualizes his 19-year-old student in his architecture class, and he hopes that Barney had sex with her because she wears revealing sweaters. And listen, I'm the referee, and what I say goes. So technically 18 is legal age, but I'm still giving points to Ted for sexualizing minors because that's his student. So plus 50 to Ted. And we find out that Barney did sleep with Ted's 19-year-old student. Barney also says to Ted, you don't care that your haircut has been co-opted by the lesbian community. Plus 50 to Barney for homophobia. Ted says to Robin, I finally know what your kind goes through. Plus 30 to Ted for sexist microaggressions, saying that women are a completely different species and othering them. And finally, Ted leaves an entire class of students unsupervised. Episode 4 is called Subway Wars. There are no issues with this episode. Episode 5 is called Architect of Destruction. And Ted's new love interest, Zoe, he thinks she's a drag queen because this hotel she wants to save called the Arcadia is in a bad area of town, so he assumes she's a drag queen. And he says, Mister, you're very convincing. So plus 50 to Ted for transphobia. And Ted specifies that it's good that Zoe is genetically female. And plus 50 points to Ted for transphobia. Also, Zoe says that she slurred really harshly. That made me sad. And Ted says that she has a solid C cup with perky bounce. Plus 30 to Ted, and he's actively getting creepier. Episode 6 is called Baby Talk. Barney wants to pick up a girl whilst talking like a little boy. Which is probably what Neil Patrick Harris is attracted to, allegedly. Episode 7, Canning Randy. So the Halloween Walk of Shame is a disgusting tradition where Barney, Ted, and Marshall unfortunately watch women walking home hungover in costumes after hookups on Halloween, or day after Halloween. So plus 50 to Ted and Barney for sexism. Episode 18 is called Natural History. Barney says, don't look at those girls' perky and impossibly symmetrical knockers. Plus 30 for objectifying women. And he tries to touch all the exhibits at the National Museum of History, so that's plus 50 for crime. Episode 9 is called Glitter. Barney says une vraie histoire to mean a true story. That is a direct translation, but I think it's more accurate to say une histoire vraie because in French the adjective almost always comes after the noun. Sounds like the writers put it through a direct translator, which seems about the level of detail the writers have. Barney sees that Robin was in this show called Space Teens, and he assumes it's a porno. Plus 50 to Barney for sexualizing minors, because why did teens make him think of porn automatically? Barney asked if Robin ended up kissing her co-star on Space Teens and that he should demonstrate on Lily. Plus 30 to Barney for fetishizing lesbians. Episode 10 is called Blitzgiving. Barney wants college girls to come back from Thanksgiving because their moms just called them fat because they gained weight and they called her a bitch, but they know she's right. Plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. And in this episode, the plus-sized gentleman from Lost is on the show, and there's just absolutely no fat jokes, of course, because he's a man. But if a woman is above a size 4 in this show, God forbid. Barney chants to Robin while everyone else is saying dance on the oven to make out with Zoe. Plus 30 for fetishizing lesbians. Also, Craig Thomas and Carter Bays make Robin be enamored by an unsolicited dick pic, which is just not realistic at all. In fact, it's the opposite. Usually people don't want unsolicited nude photos. Barney says, "Aw man," because he became the Blitz and he wasn't around to see Zoe walking around half naked in her apartment because he was on the couch. Plus 50 to Barney for sexual harassment. A lady's dress gets caught in the elevator and rips off, and Barney says, "Thank you, God." Plus 50 to Barney for sexual harassment. So he's no longer the Blitz, and that was his reward. Episode 11 is called Mermaid Theory. Oh, you just know Neil Patrick Harris hated that question. Barney calls Iris, who's Marshall's assistant, eye broccoli as a play on eye candy. A joke so bad that I didn't even understand what he was trying to say. I thought maybe eye licorice would work better since it's a candy and broccoli has nothing to do with candy. Anyways, plus 30 to Barney for calling women ugly. Barney tells Lily, when those things, referring to her breasts, swell up to 3 times their size, so do I. Ew. Plus 50 points for sexual harassment. And these are his friends, keep in mind, of like 5 years at this point. Episode 12 is called False Positive. Ted calls the girls on this reality show coin flip bimbo. Plus 30 for objectifying women. Barney says he frequently sleeps with chubsters, 6s, and over 30s. Plus 50 to Barney for fatphobia. Also, I thought Barney didn't sleep with plus-size women, so this joke doesn't even make sense canonically, but okay. Had to throw another fat joke in there. Wasn't enough. Ted throws a gingerbread house on the ground and doesn't clean it up at all. Plus 50 for crime, littering. Episode 13 is called Bad News. Barney offers to do a gynecological assessment on Lily because his doppelganger is a gynecologist. Plus 50 points to Barney for SH. Barney tries to take pictures of Lily getting a gynecological exam. Plus 50 points to Barney for SH. Ted calls Robin the office slut. Plus 30 to Ted for calling women sluts or bitches. Oh, and Marshall's dad dies, rip. Episode 14, Last Words. It's really sappy, and Marshall's dad is dead. That's it. Episode 15 is called Oh Honey. Katy Perry's in this episode, so I said, oh my god, famous astronaut. Barney says that when people say cute, it means fat, and not fat means ugly. Plus 30 to Barney for calling women fat, and 50 for fatphobia. And if I see you, Carter Bays, if I see you, Carter Bays or Craig Thomas, it's on sight. And love to see that Neil Patrick Harris's hairline is receding throughout the show. We love to see it. Barney says, I'm on Burner's Playa. Not explicitly a black scent, but I'll allow it because it's Justin Timberlake style trying to have black things. So plus 30 to Barney for racist accent. I said Ted and Zoe is just Nick and Jess from New Girl, but written worse. Episode 16 is called Desperation Day. Robin calls her friends lovely ladies from work, and Barney calls them trolls. Plus 30 points for calling women ugly. Episode 17 is called Garbage Island. No issues with that one. Episode 18 is called A Change of Heart. The really hot guy from The Duff is in this episode. In this episode, he plays Scooby. It's boring because Barney's dating Nora at this point. Episode 19 is called Legend Daddy. Barney finds out that his dad is the actor who played Lord Farquaad in Shrek, so it makes sense why Neil Patrick Harris is so short. He bullies his stepbrother and says he acts like he's getting his first period. Plus 50 for sexism. Episode 20, The Exploding Meatball Sandwich. Ted says that Lily and Marshall melted into one hermaphroditic blob. Nice to see that when Allison Brie and Dave Franco stole that script from Better Half to make together. The idea was super original and never done before. Plus 50 to Ted for transphobia. Barney bribes the janitor to keep the room at 55 degrees so he can see women. The woman who gives the sexual harassment seminar at G&B, Goliath National Bank, see her nipples. Literal sexual harassment at a sexual harassment seminar. Plus 50 to Barney for SH. There's one. Ted says, you want to play who's hot and who's Scott. 50 points to Ted for transphobia, and then Barney says it's always the one in the turtleneck. Plus 50 for transphobia to Barney. Also, I love turtlenecks, so what does that say about me? And I said Ted is such a weenie about women. He can't handle Zoe disagreeing with him. Episode 21 is called Hopeless. Barney says that nobody watches the news unless it's a car chase or nip slip. And I'm the ref, so what I say goes. And Barney said that to Robin, so that's 50 points for SH. Barney makes fun of the Devil Wears Prada, so plus 10 evil points for bad taste. Episode 22 is called The Perfect Cocktail. Barney talks about her perky breast heaving and glad to know she's mouthy in a good way. He's talking about Ted's girlfriend Zoe, plus 50 points to Barney for SH. Barney says he brushed Lily's boob with his elbow on purpose the other day. That's plus 50 to Barney for SH. Ted and Zoe stay in the Arcadian, and he says, "Can you get STDs from the ghost of a prostitute?" Plus 50 to Ted for degrading women in sex work. Barney calls Zoe a self-righteous bitch with a pointless cause and a megaphone. Plus 30 to Barney for calling women bitches. Episode 23 is called Landmarks. Also, this episode takes place in the spring of 2011. This is me in 2011. Ted and Barney wish they could be this cool. Barney has been drawing Lily's boobs on a cocktail. Barney has been drawing Lily and Robin's boobs on a cocktail napkin, and he gives it to them. Plus 50 to Barney for SH. Why are they friends with this creep? Barney says that Ted's girlfriend Zoe has magic lady bits. Plus 50 to Barney for SH. Barney makes a DEI joke and says Ted got the architect job at GNB for being Latino. The joke doesn't even make sense, but plus 50 to Barney for racism. And Ted steals the lion head off the Arcadian to make it not a landmark anymore. Plus 50 to Ted for crime. Episode 24 is called Challenge Accepted. And Barney talks about himself, that he got so fat when he was dating Robin that she'd unhook his bra. Plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. And alright, Ted gets a 5-yard penalty for false start because he wants to get back together with Zoe when he gets a sunburn or steps on a random piece of gum, so now I just gotta reset it. Alright, we're on to season 7, and there's still 3 more seasons. Somehow. Episode 1 is called The Best Man. Ted says if Barney Stinson needs you at his wedding, assume there's a dead hooker in the closet. Plus 50 to Ted for degrading sex workers. Barney says, what if the tie gets fat and bosses me around? Plus 50 to Barney for fatphobia. I mean, women are gonna gain weight as they get older, unless you want to get osteoporosis.
I have osteoporosis.
So they're in Cleveland, so, for Ted's stupid adult, immature friend Punchy's wedding, and Barney says single file ladies, no fatties, and Ted says that's ridiculous, and he says, yeah, it's Cleveland, single file ladies. Plus 50 to Barney for fatphobia. Literally 2 fat jokes in the first 3 minutes of the first episode of season 7. Imagine Carter Bays and Craig Thomas looking back at their lives' work and just thinking it's like single file ladies, no fatties. I would never show my face in Hollywood again, but men have the audacity. They even started a podcast called How I Made Your Mother.
Also, I noticed too, the only woman in this show who looks to be about like a size 10 is allowed to be married to Punchy because he's not a major character in the show. So sometimes they'll have women who are bigger than a size 2, but they're not allowed to be like a main character. They're just a side character.
Episode 2 is called The Naked Truth.
So this image is shown very quickly, but it's implied that Ted is doing some kind of blackface because Straight Out of Connecticut seems like a reference to Straight Out of Compton. Also, he's wearing dreads. So 50 points for racism.
Barney has a play where he says there's poison in his penis and he needs someone to suck it out. And he says there's no time to explain how the poison got in there. I just need you to suck it out. Plus 50 to Barney for essay. The other play, so he's telling Nora all the plays he's done. And so it's actually confirmed that he has assaulted a lesbian because he reminisces about the time he's essayed a woman. He said, no, I am really a lesbian. This thing I'm wearing is just really realistic. Yeah, so that's super gross. Plus 50 to Barney for essay. And he also, it's very quick, blink and you'll miss it joke, but it's implied that Barney has done blackface, or at least implied he's black to sleep with women. He called this play Soul Man, and because this one woman only dated black men, and he called himself Barnell. So plus 50 for racism. He said there's a lot of blackface in this episode. Did Shane Dawson write this episode? And then, so Barney has another play where he says he's an astronaut and he's been bitten by a moon snake and he needs to suck the poison all out of it. So plus 50 for essay. Episode 3 is called Ducky Tie. Barney tells Lily to bust him out and let him dance, talking about Lily's larger breasts from pregnancy. Plus 50 to Barney for SH. And Ted says, Lily, it looks like you have a butt on your chest. Plus 50 to Ted for SH. Barney offers to show Lily his testicles in order for her to show her breasts. Plus 50 for SH. Barney sets up this whole fake hibachi bet where he learned how to do hibachi just so he could touch Lily's boobs. Plus 50 for sexual assault to Barney. And Barney wants to see Lily's breasts just for a minute in a well-lit photography studio, and then he'll call the bet off. Plus 50 to Barney for SH. Victoria comes back, Ted's ex, and her fiance's name is Klaus from Germany.
I don't care about nothing. I don't clean my house. I'll kill everybody. I'm a fish named Klaus.
Episode 4 is called The Stinson Missile Crisis. They make Jason Segel say it's fascinating how little I know about vaginas, as if any of that is true. A woman flashes Barney because there's a for free breast reduction consultation, and also flashes him at the bar because women are stupid and don't know you're only supposed to have a consultation in a doctor's room. Plus 50 to Barney for SA. They had the host from Survivor doing an ad plug for Barney's breast reduction business, but at least Jeff from Survivor didn't even seem happy about doing it. Barney is using a traditional Native American headdress to sleep with women, which are, quote, sacred symbols of honor, leadership, and power, primarily used by the Plains tribes. So plus 50 to Barney for racism. And Barney also said he tried to push the envelope of what a casting director could do, hold, or lick during an audition. So Barney is sexually assaulting women, and it's played for laughs, plus 50 for SA. Barney also does an offensive gay lisp, which is confusing because Neil Patrick Harris is actually gay, so what does this even mean? It is a pick-me, I guess. Plus 50 to Barney for homophobia. And Ted says, and that's assuming the mother of my children is a huge slut, plus 30 to Ted for calling women sluts. Episode 5 is called Field Trip. And Robin falls in love with her psychiatrist. And maybe Kendra was inspired by How I Met Your Mother. Yeah, see? I made a neurotypical joke. This channel's for you too, guys. Barney wants to teach sex lessons to 18-year-old freshmen that are at Ted's Intro to Archaeology class. Plus 50 to Barney for... archaeology. Intro to Architecture class. Plus 50 to Barney for Sexualizing Minors. Barney says thank you, Gina, to one of the college students, implying that Barney has slept with the 18-year-old. Plus 50 to Sexualizing Minors to Barney. Barney gets upset that Nora is 37, plus 50 to Barney for sexism, and it turns out she's actually 29, just doesn't like Ewoks. He says she has 1 good year left, and Barney is 34 this season. Episode 6 is called Mystery versus History. And the only good character is therapist Kevin, because he hates everyone, he hates all of Robin's friends, and he's correct. And so this episode is all the reason, so the technology is really just so advanced in 2011. So it's about checking someone's profile before you go on a date. And in a flashback, Lily and Marshall and Barney find this girl Mia's old profile, and then Ted says, is Mia standing behind this morbidly obese woman? And then so Mia in the present says, what you said about women starving themselves makes so much sense, and then she stuffs her mouth with food, and that's just really cruel. Plus 50 for Fatphobia to Ted. Also, this joke is really dumb, because why is it a bad thing if this woman lost all this weight? Isn't that impressive? And then Ted just goes, ew, fatty. Barney says this bitch is hiding something. Plus 30 to Barney for calling women bitches. And Barney says the baby would love to see mommy in the shower. Plus 50 for Sexualizing Minors. Why is he thinking of babies and sex in the same sentence? What is he, Shane Dawson? And Ted imagines what's wrong with his date, and in one of them she says, I'm a prostitute, you didn't think I was actually into you. Plus 50 to Ted for degrading women in sex work. And in another thing, because he's always got penises on the mind, he says he imagines that this lady might possibly be trans, and so she says, you don't buy beer, you rent it. And then she uses a urinal, and she says, I know, I'm a dude. Plus 50 to Ted for transphobia. Also, are the people who wrote this show stupid? I guess knowledge about trans people wasn't as known in 2011, but surely idiots like Carter Bays and Craig Thomas would know that a trans woman wouldn't be comfortable, safe, or even want to use the urinal. So not only is the joke stupid, it just doesn't make any sense. Episode 6 is called Noretta. And Barney's on a date with Nora, and he tells this kid at the ice skating rink, you know how your mom won't let you have ice cream until after dinner, but waiting makes it so much better. Well, I'm gonna have sex with it. Plus 50 to Barney for talking like a 6-year-old, or plus 50 to Barney for talking to a 6-year-old about sex. Why? Episode 18 is called The Slutty Pumpkin Returns. Ted calls this girl Slutty Pumpkin, plus 30 to Ted for calling women sluts. We learn that 15-year-old Ted stuck his dick in a warm water of... We learn that 15-year-old Ted stuck his dick in a warm glass of water for some reason, plus 50 for gooning. Barney hates that he is a quarter Canadian, which is just so stupid because it's not an ethnicity, it's a nationality. And Canada and the United States are just a bunch of white people stealing land from natives, so who cares? The only difference is you suffer more in the US and the pay is better. So Barney shows up to the Halloween party in USA stuff instead of the Mountie costume and chants USA, 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 plus 15 to Barney for weird American propaganda. And Barney, and in the end of the episode, Barney beats up the Canadian version of himself that comes out of his forehead, so plus 15 to Barney for weird American propaganda. Episode 9 is called Disaster Averted. Since Ted was a former Boy Scout, Barney says he was prepared to paint his sister's nails, plus 30 to Barney for sexist microaggressions. Also, Barney says le jeu commence, which is the game starts in present tense. I think he would say le jeu va commencer, which is la future proche, which is what you'd say if something was happening soon. Barney says, quote, dump the hoochie, which is a slur against women I've not heard of in a long time, and I had to Google. So plus 30 to Barney for inventing a new slur to call women, to call the random actresses in tank tops that Craig and Carter forced them to wear. Also, Kevin says goon, well, chased by 2 goons, so 1,000 cool points to Kevin. They're such alcoholics that they're drinking beer in a hurricane, so plus 15 to Ted for encouraging binge drinking. Episode 10 is called Tick, Tick, Tick. Ted talks about the gender diversity palooza in college, and he said there's some real bitches there, plus 30 for calling women bitches. Barney films him and Robin having sex without her knowing again, which is a crime in New York, plus 50 to Barney for crime. Episode 11, The Rebound Girl. They mentioned the slutty pumpkin, so plus 30 to Ted for calling women sluts. Also, Ted and Barney say they wanted to be gay because they won't have to talk about feelings. It's impressive that Ted and Barney both managed to be sexist and also homophobic. Plus 50 to Ted and Barney for homophobia, plus 50 to Ted and Barney for sexism. Ted does a weird thing where he pretends he's gay and he says, girlfriend, we would all 3 of us have fun, plus 50 to Ted for homophobia. Episode 12 is called Symphony and Illumination. Robin says she's pregnant and Barney says, are you sure you're not just getting fat, plus 50 to Barney for fatphobia. He also says you forgot to tell your boobs that, which I'm going to give a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. So he'll move to the 35-yard line. Barney also mentions the slutty nuns show up at St. Peter's, so plus 30 to Barney for calling women sluts. Episode 13 is called Tailgate. Barney says he wants to make a bar where we get chicks drunk and bang them. That is sexual assault because when someone is drunk, they cannot consent, so plus 50 to Barney for SA.
Oh, and check it out. We worked out a theme song for puzzles. Puzzles is a place where people go to feel like they belong. Man, but oysters ain't for me. Gonna take advantage of dumb drunk girls. No, we're not. Bro, that would be wrong. You're the belle of the ball, but you ain't my cup of tea. A place where wit and wisdom bloom. A place to bang chicks in Ted's room. Okay. There's a place for me. It's the place I go where the beer is cheap and the lights are low. It's Patty's Pub. I like Patty's Pub. And then we'll talk about it. At puzzles, we all fit together. They always vote you best in show, but this dog who disagrees. Cause I like life in Patty's Pub. the greatest place to go.
How am I the only one who's noticed this? Right? Like, it's so obvious. Like, people point out, like, how It's Always Sunny makes, like, references to Seinfeld, but they never talk about how much it, like, makes fun of How I Met Your Mother as it was airing. Barney also says, when you're distracting the nerds and fatties, I'll be in the VIP room getting it in, plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. I had to look up zoning laws in New York City because I don't think you can have a bar in someone's apartment. So plus 50 to Ted and Barney for crime. And also selling alcohol without a license in New York violates the Alcoholic Beverage Control ABC law, risking license revocation, up to $10,000 in civil penalties per violation, and a 2-year ban on the premises. It is illegal to have alcohol on a premises without a license, subject to specific restrictions and penalties. Episode 14 is called 46 Minutes. Ted says, it's like when they canceled Party of Five for the second time. I mean sports. I had to look up Party of Five because I'm not old. It's some 90s drama. Plus 30 to Ted for Sexist Micro-aggression. Barney says when they serve alcohol at a strip club, you're not allowed to show your vagina. He says to Ted, plus 50 points to Transphobia to Barney. Episode 15 is called The Burning Beekeeper. Barney says, I need to interact with those asteroids, and looks directly at a woman's chest and barely looks at her eye at all. It looks her in the eye at all. Plus 50 to Barney for SH. Episode 16 is called The Drunk Train. Barney pretends that he has enormous penis syndrome, which is plus 30 to Barney for lying to women to gain affection. Barney pretends to be a burglar so he can steal all of Lily's underwear. Plus 50 to Barney for sexual harassment. And keep in mind, this is his friend of more than 5 years that is pregnant. Episode 17 is called No Pressure. And we start off with a 5-yard penalty to Ted. So he goes at the 45-yard line. Because he tries to get back together and love bomb Robin and mention their promise to get married when they turn 40. After she was engaged and broke up with Kevin on the same day. Really shitty. Barney sneaks into Lily and Marshall's bed and says Lily isn't wearing a bra. And also, if we did it really good, do you think that I could turn that into my baby? And so plus 50 for sexual harassment and another 50. Episode 18 is called Karma. They're in the strip club, so I think Ted says, I can't believe we're in the strip club and the biggest boob is you. And then Barney says, clearly you haven't seen the DeSalva twins. And Ted says, yowza. Plus 50 to Barney and Ted for objectifying women. Barney told this woman that sex with her would cure her nearsightedness. And it cuts to a woman wearing glasses going, Barney? It's really funny. Plus 50 to Barney for essay. Episode 19 is called The Broth. Barney makes them sign an oath where they say they'll never interfere with Barney's love life again unless he's about to get all up on a fatty. Plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. Barney admits he's the devil, but I think Satan even thinks Barney goes too far. Episode 20 is called Trilogy Time. Nothing really happens. They watch the Star Wars trilogy. Episode 21, Now We're Even. Ted admits that he likes the film Norbit, so plus 50 to Ted for Fatphobia and 50 for racism, honestly. Ted does a black scent when he says, you're locked out, dummy, which I assume is a reference to Stanford and Son, which I haven't heard of since I'm not old. But it looks like the leads were two black men, so Barney is impersonating either Stanford or Son. Plus 30 to Barney for racist accent. Episode 22 is called Good Crazy. Barney says that society considers stripping slutty or borderline prostitution. Plus 30 to Barney for calling women sluts and 50 for degrading women in sex work. Episode 23 is called The Magician's Code, Part 1. Barney tries to steal a motorcycle in Atlantic City, plus 50 to Barney for crime. Barney tried to pick up girls as the Terminator and exposes himself in public completely naked, which is also a crime, so plus 50. Public lewdness, penal law 245 is a class B misdemeanor involving sexual intent and exposure of person. Barney says he has also seen women from Buffalo, and he says that city is aptly named. That was the second joke about women are ugly in Buffalo. Like, come on. He's calling women there as big as a buffalo. Plus 50 to Barney for fatphobia. Also, buffaloes weigh 1,000 to 2,000 pounds. So that's just cruel. And he can't even stop fat shaming women, even in the after school special sappy episode where Lily's having a baby. Episode 24 is called The Magician's Code, Part 2. Barney again brings explosives to the airport, so plus 50 for crime. And Ted is upset that his neighbor, Mrs. Madsen, thinks he's gay, plus 50 to Ted for homophobia. Alright, so let's look at the game stats. So really, luckily nobody had that many penalties this season. Well, let's reset and move to the 50-yard line. Alright, season 8. I'm almost done. Yay! I don't know how people watch this show for fun, to be honest. Episode 1 is called Farhampton. Ted says no. When Klaus, which is Victoria's ex-fiance, could be interested in his schnitzel, so plus 50 to Ted for homophobia. Ted Mosby.
Straight up, bitch.
Episode 2 is called The Prenup, where Barney makes a addendum in the prenup that Quinn has to pay $2,000 every time she gains 1 pound, and he will do weekly weigh-ins. That's really creepy. Plus 50 to Barney for fatphobia. Also, this is a continuation error that the guy played by Bob Odenkirk is has this dog he really loves called Tugboat, and Tugboat was a wiener dog previously, and they just completely changed the dog's breed. Didn't think I'd notice, but I have no life, so I did. Episode 3 is called Nannies. Barney tells the nanny that she should follow him to the tub, and she says, should I get the baby? And he says no, meaning that he's going to strip naked in the bath, so that's plus 50 to Barney for SA. Ted calls the guy that Robin is dating a girl, because he wants to feel heard in the relationship. And at this point, it's like, guys, it's 2012, Obama's president, plus 50 to Ted for sexism. Episode 4 is called Who Wants to Be a Godparent? Barney creates a stroller to look at women's cleavage as they bend down, to look at a baby in the carriage, and a stroller, and he calls it a brawler, and he calls Robin's breasts bundles of joy, so plus 50 to Barney for sexual harassment. Barney says that he would take Lily and Marshall's son Marvin to Amsterdam as a minor to teach him about the birds and the bees, and that's probably what Neil Patrick Harris would do with 19-year-old Nick Jonas, plus 50 for sexualizing minors. Barney says he'd throw a brick through that bitch's window, who broke teenage Marvin's heart, plus 30 for calling women bitches. Also, this girl is likely a minor since it's the teenage boy's ex-girlfriend, so he's totally okay with calling a teen girl a bitch, so concerning. Barney says that, and since Marshall and Lily had the baby, they don't want anyone talking to them unless it's bigger than a 15 on the problem scale. Barney says Barney Stinson begging anything less than an 8 is like a 15 on the problem scale, plus 30 to Barney for calling women ugly. Also, as Lily and Marshall put Barney on their will as a caretaker, the next scene is him putting a ball in the bro stroller and zoom in on the actress's chest because we really needed that. Episode 5 is called The Autumn of Breakups. Barney finds a dog and names him Brover. And he says if Brover meets a lady, he'll chat up his chubby friend, or her chubby friend, for him. And it's a cute little pug dog. And so we're fat shaming dogs now? What's next? Babies, elderly people, hell, nuns. Plus 50 to Barney for fatphobia. Barney talks about the dog Brover, that he says that's kind of gross when you pleasure yourself orally, but it doesn't mean I'm not proud of it. Sus. Episode 6 is called Splitsville. It was fine. Episode 7 is called Stamp Tramp. Barney calls Long Island a third world country, plus 50 to Barney for racism. Honestly, more classism, but I just think it's gross how much they hate more affordable areas of New York City. And also they got Charles Boyle from Brooklyn Nine-Nine calling women fat, so even Charles Boyle isn't safe. Barney says he has nothing but respect for you skanks. He's talking about the women at the Lusty Leopard, which is the strip club he likes to go to. Plus 30 for calling women sluts or bitches, because since skanks is a variant of that. Episode 8 is called 12 Horny Women. I said, rest in peace, Marshall Erickson. You would have hated the Trump administration. And the writers really like to call Jason Segel fat, and I don't know if it's jealousy or something because he's super cute and he's the hottest guy in the show by a mile, so the writers literally seem to neg him about being charismatic and handsome.
I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I've seen this a lot with men online. Men seem to get upset when the female gaze doesn't match what men think women want, i.e. super jacked up on steroids and 8-pack abs, and they get really angry when women want men like Jason Segel because he's super cute, tall, cute curly hair, big brown eyes, funny, nurturing. I'm writing this alone on Christmas, okay? Mama needs her sugar. And he was really hot on Freaks and Geeks, okay? Alright, I'm done.
Barney tells Ted to come back and comment on the size and color of the redhead at the bar with the big dark nipples. This one feels kind of racially motivated, even if not completely intended, because pretty much every woman of color is going to have darker colored nipples, so plus 50 to Barney for racism. Barney refers to Robin's coworker as that bitch Patrice, plus 30 to Barney for calling women bitches. Episode 9 is called Lobster Crawl. No issues. Episode 10, The Overcorrection. No issues. Episode 11 is called The Final Page. Barney says if Lily wants a big wiener in her mouth, she's got my number. While he's proposing to his fake fiance Patrice, he's still sexually harassing Lily. Plus 50 to Barney for SH. Episode 12, The Final Page 2.
Shane Dawson be like,
Robin says to Barney, you lied to me, how could I ever trust you again? And then Barney says, will you marry me? And she says yes for some reason. Episode 13 is called Band or DJ, no issues. Episode 14 is called Ring Up. Barney refers to the girl that Ted is dating. She won't come inside the bar because she's too young. He doesn't know that. And he says, it's pouring rain, Ted. It's pretty obvious she can't fit through the door. Plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. Ted dates a 20-year-old. Gross. And this is where I realized there's this trend going on about Williamsburg. And I'm like kind of too young because I'm not a millennial. And I thought they were all talking about... I didn't know Williamsburg was a place in Brooklyn. I thought they were talking about Williamsburg, Virginia. And I was like, yeah, like dressing in period wear, doing crafts, churning butter, apple cider. Like that's way cooler than millennial optimism. Like who cares about working for BuzzFeed and having a handlebar mustache? Like episode 15 is called P.S. I Love You. Barney calls Ted's girlfriend a crazy stalker bitch. Plus 30 for Barney for calling women bitches. Episode 16 is called Bad Crazy. So Ted gets a 5-yard penalty for delay of game. Put him at the 45-yard line. Because he's drawing out his relationship with Jeanette because he's too scared to break up with her. He knows she's mentally unwell and he still dates her anyway because he thinks she's hot. Episode 17 is called The Ashtray.
also this show can't even objectify women, right? Like at least do something creative, like cheerleaders or cowgirls or something. Not just what's basically underwear.
Episode 18, Weekend at Barney's. And Ted gets another 5-yard penalty, which puts him at the 40-yard line. For illegal formation because he pretends to be a nice guy to want to get back with Jeanette because she's good in bed and he knows she's seriously mentally unwell and doesn't care. I guess I don't know who he's referring to, but Barney says 2 fully operational sweater stretchers plus 30 to Barney for objectifying women. Like imagine if women talked about men that way, that long sausage pants stretcher. You know what, actually that'd be kind of funny. Episode 19, The Fortress.
I can't even make a joke about this. This is just really depressing. Barney invented a device that takes a woman's weight and calculates her BMI. And it looks like I had to re-show the clip a couple times, but it looks like it stops at 133. And it's annoying because this sort of thing, it's like a 10-second blink and you'll miss it type of joke, but it's like you see the repeated over and over and over and over again. It's kind of shaping young minds in a way. And now people wonder, oh, why are men so obsessed with women's weight? Why do they always ask BMI? It's like, this is the stuff they grew up on.
Plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. He says, because there's only one kind of chubby you want in the bedroom. Funny. Barney calls his device Escape from Bitch Mountain, referring to Escape from Witch Mountain, which is like a Disney Channel movie. Plus 30 to Barney for calling women bitches. Episode 20 is called The Time Travelers. This episode's good because Ted realizes he's left alone, so yay. Episode 21 is called Homeward Bound. Ted says about the yoga instructor who's also helping plan Barney and Robin's wedding. The bewitching little detail is that she has a redonkulous body, so plus 30 to Ted for objectifying women. Barney can't write out Liddy, the wedding planner's name, without saying double D's, plus 30 for objectifying women. Also, this is right in front of Robin. She's his fiance. And Barney says, do you hope she wears something slinky and backless? Talking about Libby. Ted says, I do. He's objectifying women literally 3 weeks before his wedding, plus 30. Episode 22 is called The Bro Mitzvah. We know Noah Schnapp probably loves this episode. Barney tries to hook up with Lily for some reason. He starts to take off his pants when Lily says she's a surprise for him. Plus 50 for SH to Barney. Episode 23 is called Something Old. Barney tells literal children for every 3 10s you bang, bang a 5. Plus 50 for sexualizing minors. And Barney gives candy to kids. Nick Jonas. Episode 24 is Something New. I just said that Kristen Milotti is way too good of an actress for this stupid show. If you have a chance, watch Palm Springs. It's such a good movie. And I saw her on tour in Once the Musical, and she was so good. Alright, so we gotta reset the board because we're at the last season. It begins, and he is coming. No. Episode 1 is called The Locket. And Tracy, the mother, is played by Kristen Milotti. And the way she acts, I was gonna say, is really cartoonishly cheesy or cartoonishly cutesy and manic pixie dream girl. But honestly, that's how I would act. I'd probably give random people cookies on the train. But the thing about manic pixie dream girls is usually they're on the spectrum, so it's not something to be completely romanticized. Because they just show the fun part of being neurodivergent, not the days in bed, not being able to move or crying because fluorescent lights are too bright. Episode 2 is called Coming Back. Barney says he became a sex predator because a gypsy cursed his ancestors. Plus 50 to Barney for racism. Also, didn't this show literally have Ted on an earlier season say they prefer to be called Romani? So it's just going backwards. And his brother has a really ugly goatee.
Y'all pull up on me, bitch. If y'all pulled up on me, I would've seen y'all niggas because I was outside. Pussy, stop playing with me, bro.
Episode 3 is called Last Time in New York. I don't know, I was on my phone. Marshall wears a cheese hat. Episode 4 is called The Broken Code. And Lily in the show, there's like a running joke that she has a crush on Robin. And it's funny, but it's also kind of annoying because she fantasizes about having a sexual relationship that in no way affects their marriages, which frustrates me because it infers that lesbian sex isn't real. It's just fun, but sleeping with a man is serious cheating. Episode 5 is called The Poker Game. James says it's a good time to be gay. False. In 2013, Glee and American Horror Story were airing more. We're airing more like it's a good time not to have eyes. Barney tells Lily that her outfit makes her look a little more fat around the hips, but not any more than usual. Plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. Also, Allison Hannigan is literally tiny and like a size 2. Barney gets cornrows. Plus 50 to Barney for racism.
Kill me, get your ass in here. Come on, girl.
And Barney and Robin have a lavender marriage because why is Robin dressed like Jane Lynch at her wedding? Episode 6 is called Night Vision. Barney says the 9th commandment is thou shalt not lie with fat chicks. Plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. Also, it's totally reasonable that the leader of the Barden Bellas would be with Chuckle McGee here. Definitely not sending the message that men can look however they want, and women always have to be thin and 25. Episode 7, no questions asked. Barney asks for a stripper to go to his 13-year-old cousin's room, plus 50 for sexualizing minors. Episode 8 is called The Lighthouse. Barney worries that Robin's mom may be too big to fit in a bathtub. I guess that means Robin may get fat at some point if her mom is fat, because that's how genetics works, apparently. Plus 50 to Barney for fatphobia. Episode 9 is called Platonish. And Tracy, the mother, is barely in the season because she's a concept, not a fully realized being, and her life ends and begins with Ted. Barney makes a joke with trash bags. He says, "I'd be glad to hope she's not too hefty," which is a trash bag pun, but also calling women fat again, plus 50 for fatphobia. Episode 10, Mom and Dad. At least Goatee Megamind James is a good singer, unlike Neil Patrick Harris. Marshall leaves a bag of oranges on the roof. That means he has ADHD confirmed. I've done that with a bag of chips before. I don't know why I put a bag of chips on my car roof. I don't know. Episode 11, Bedtime Stories. Lin-Manuel Miranda raps, so that's plus 11 evil points for Marshall talking to Lin-Manuel Miranda.
If I can prove that I never touched my balls, will you promise not to tell another soul what you saw?
Episode 12, The Rehearsal Dinner. Barney mentions that Great-Grandma Stinson might need a laser bag Great-Grandma Stinson needs a laser tag belt extension, meaning that while he was so worried about Robin's estranged mom being fat, his own grandma is fat enough to need an extender, so amazing. Episode 13, Bass Player Wanted. Barney has several citations for public urination, plus 50 for crime. Ted punches the guy who lies about his parents dying by eating barracudas, plus 50 to Ted for crime. Episode 14 is called Slapsgiving 3, Slap Poyman and Slap Mara. There's no issues with that one. Episode 15 is called Unpause. Barney says, absolutely, Lily's boobs will always work on me, plus 50 to Barney for SH. Episode 16, How Your Mother Met Me. Lewis, Tracy's boyfriend at the time, breaks up with Tracy because she's too autistic. He proposes to Tracy and she says no. Also, they barely say her name because Tracy isn't a real person. She's just an idea of a woman that was conjured up for Ted. Totally unrelated, but watch I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It's such a good movie. Episode 17 is called Sunrise. Barney gets so drunk that he develops like 3 different personalities. Plus 15 for encouraging binge drinking. Lily storms out, so that means Marshall's single. Episode 18 is called Rally. Barney gets so drunk and hungover that he can't even wake up, even when people say bear sounds. When people play bear sounds, he needs his stomach pumped. Plus 15 to Barney for encouraging binge drinking. Ted calls his mom a bitch. He says, that bitch lied to me. Plus 30 for Ted to calling women bitches. Episode 19 is called Vesuvius. All Tracy did was play ukulele, say she likes coins, and they already implied she's dying of Disney momitis in episode 19. Episode 20 is called Daisy. It's really boring, and it's super long, and it just shows that Lily's pregnant. Episode 21 is called Gary Blauman. And Bob Saget, Boring Ted, says that it's easy to get rid of people in life if you don't try hard to keep them. Good. Episode 22, End of the Aisle. Barney wants to make his vow to Robin. I vow to love you unconditionally unless you pudge out, and then I'm a Barney-shaped hole in the wall. Yeah, I don't think it's so bad that Robin ends up with Ted. Plus 50 to Barney for Fatphobia. Episode 23, Lost Forever. Tracy likes everything Ted likes, farts out 2 kids, and then dies.